Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Dak and Chadwick each lit up a smoke and cracked their windows, the excitement of a good day fishing warming their spirits despite the cold wind that suddenly filled the cab of Chadwick's truck. Sporadic raindrops began to fall as they left the river pooled in the road and splashed off the deeply grooved tires of the smoky old diesel truck, creating a cascading wave of dirty water, sloshing on both sides of the truck.
"I cannot believe that Big Bass's energy today,"
Dak cried out, elated at the day's catch. "Easy for you to say. All I got was that damn throwback." Chadwick rolled his eyes as the words left his mouth. Headlights passed by as they reveled in their elevated mood. Dak reached over to the center of the console and spun the volume knob on the radio.
"I need to take a nature break, if you know what I mean,"
Dak informed Chadwick as he was exiting the interstate onto the maze of back roads that connected the interstate to his home. "Sure thing. Let me find a good spot," he answered, not bothered at all by taking a short break from the 2-hour-long drive. Chadwick slowed as he looked around for a safe, secluded place to use as nature's urinal as a street sign entered their field of vision. Chadwick slowed, squinting to read the sign. Light Road. It's dark. Maybe it's an ironic street name. Chadwick chuckled as he turned his truck onto Light Road.
"That's perfect. Look at that dead-end turnaround up there,"
Dak said, his words beginning to carry an air of urgency. Chadwick slowed as he neared the dead end and turned his truck back around towards the direction they had come from. "There you go. There won't be anything on my seats today," Chadwick chided, shutting his engine down to not disturb the neighbors with his loud exhaust. Chadwick climbed down out of his cab and proceeded to take care of business as Dak did the same. A loud rustling was heard in the woods on the passenger side of the cab. "You good over there?" "Thought I heard something," Chadwick asked Dak, his anxiety beginning to creep up on him like a predator silently hunting prey.
Yeah, I heard something too. Sounds big,"
Dak replied, his voice shaking just enough for Chadwick to notice the change. "Let's hurry up and get going. It's probably a fox or something, but better to not find out. Just in case," Chadwick suggested, his feet now flat on the floor in his cab. The rustling was growing louder as Dak hurried into the opposite side of Chadwick's truck. Chadwick turned the key to the on position, the dash lights illuminating the cab in a soft glow. He turned it farther to the start position and was shocked to find that the starter wouldn't crank.
"I thought you fixed that,"
Dak exclaimed worriedly. "No, damn it. Money's tight, man," Chadwick replied, a look of embarrassment covering his face.
"No biggie. We'll just call someone to pick us up and we'll deal with it tomorrow. Sound good?" Dak asked, his tone softening. Chadwick glanced at his phone, the blank screen revealing that his battery was dead. "My battery's dead. I don't have a charger in here. How are you looking?" Chadwick asked, his embarrassment growing. Dak looked at his phone. "Oh my God, no signal. What kind of backwoods place did you bring me to?"
Dak asked, annoyance entering his tone again. "Didn't you find this road?" Chadwick asked, deflecting the blame to his younger friend.
"What do we do?"
Dak asked, residual fear resonating in his voice. "The old guys say that if you tap the starter with something heavy, like a hammer, then it might kick over," Chadwick suggested, climbing out of his cab to root around in his toolbox. Dak waited inside the cab and stared out the window aimlessly. After a few moments, he turned to look at Chadwick to see if he had found something useful. Fear overtook his senses as he looked around for his friend.
"What the hell?"
Dak thought as he jumped out of the truck, frantically trying to locate his friend. Dak reached the truck's tail end, finding Chadwick bent down, tying his shoe out of view of the cab.
Damn it, Chadwick!
Dak exclaimed angrily. What? Chadwick asked, clearly confused by Dak's reaction.
Never mind. Did you find anything?
Dak asked, intentionally changing the topic quickly. Nope, nothing that I think will work. I had my tools out last weekend. I guess I forgot to put them back in. The toolbox is basically empty. Chadwick shrugged as he walked back to the cab. The sound of the truck doors slamming shut seemed like the equivalent of a coffin being sealed shut for the two young men. Their perception of the silence and the cold inflated to extremes as they sat in their respective seats, watching their breath fog the windows. Chadwick passed the time looking at the details of the two houses to their left. Up until just a moment ago, both houses had been completely dark. The second house on the left now emitted light in two separate downstairs windows. Chadwick rolled down his window and lit up a smoke. You think the people at either two of these houses would help us out? Maybe use their phone or something? Chadwick suggested, grasping for some sort of solution.
I don't know, man. It's late. And what if these yokels are crazy or something?
Dak asked. I'm sure they're normal, nice people. Besides, it's only 8 p.m., Chadwick said, staring at the house with the light on. The second house on the left now had the porch light on, and lights inside the house. Well, look at that, Chadwick exclaimed as a man and woman walked towards his truck.
I got a bad feeling,
Dak muttered as Chadwick climbed out of the truck to greet the people as they approached.
You boys in some sort of trouble?
The man asked. The man stood about 6 feet tall. His black hair was cut short, revealing weathered facial features that only old age could bestow upon a man. His wife stood at a slight 5'2", creating a vast height difference between them. Her hair was gray and long, and her skin bore a resemblance to the consistency of a long-past ripe avocado. Her long, painted nails stuck out from her fingers like crude daggers.
This feels wrong. Look at these guys, man,
Dak muttered under his breath. Yes, sir, we are. I believe my starter's dead in the water and our cell phones seem to be giving us a hard time, Chadwick explained as Dak continued muttering under his breath about his disapproval of their situation.
How can we help?
The woman asked in a raspy voice. A phone would be awesome, Chadwick suggested as the raindrops descended more rapidly on the concrete.
Come on in, boys. Let's get you out of the rain and we'll figure it out,
the old man offered, waving his hand in the direction of his 2-story home across the street.
No, Chadwick. No way,
Dak said, as Chadwick started to walk towards the old couple's home. Come on, Dak. Are you really going to spend the time out here by yourself? Chadwick asked sarcastically.
Damn it,
Dak thought, as he climbed out of the truck and joined his friend as he walked into the house. The two young men entered through the front door into a small mudroom. The first thing that they noticed inside the home was a wall-mounted topographical map of the state of Idaho. What the fuck? Chadwick thought, as his gaze settled on the map. You guys like potatoes? Chadwick asked, stifling a laugh. The old couple looked at him questioningly. Never mind. My bad, Chadwick said, backpedaling his words.
My name is Martha. This is my husband, Wilbur.
The older woman said, pointing at herself and then her husband. I'm Chadwick, and this is Dak, Chadwick said politely.
Welcome to our home, boys,
Wilbur said as he led them into the kitchen. The kitchen walls were adorned with some of the strangest wall art either of the two of them had ever seen, the most prominent being a large painting of an apple sawing a pear in half. The second most notable was a 4x4 canvas of 2 spider monkeys, playing tug-of-war with an unknown bird species. The image that stuck out the most in Chadwick's mind was a small painting of a young child building a small toy structure using severed fingers in place of toy blocks. Chadwick shuddered.
I see the cold is seeping into your bones. Come, warm yourself by the fireplace,
Wilbur suggested. No, I'm not cold. It's your creepy paintings, Chadwick thought, as he followed Wilbur into another room. How about that phone? Chadwick asked Wilbur as the old man sat down in a chair.
Oh dear, I thought I mentioned that already. I'm afraid our phone lines have gone down with this strange intermittent storm we've had today,
Wilbur explained as Chadwick felt a ball begin to tighten in his stomach. Chadwick looked around and began to wonder where Dak was. Do you know where my buddy Dak is? Chadwick asked Wilbur as he watched him rock in his chair.
Oh, I think Martha sat him down while she cooks up some food for you boys,
Wilbur answered, rocking faster. Chadwick glanced at the man just in time to see a shadow race across the room from left to right. What was that? Chadwick asked, pointing towards the area that he saw in the movement seconds ago.
Not sure what you mean,
Wilbur asked, appearing slightly confused. Is there anyone here besides you and Martha? Chadwick inquired anxiously.
No, just us two. Why do you ask?
Wilbur questioned. Never mind, I thought I saw something. I must just be tired, Chadwick explained. A loud bang rang out from the kitchen. Chadwick left the room he was currently in and retraced his steps back to the kitchen.
Oh, blasted cat!
Martha yelled as Chadwick entered the kitchen. Chadwick watched as a black and white cat scurried out of the room, stopping to look back at the pile of pots and pans it had knocked over before disappearing into the shadows of the hallway. Martha busied herself with quickly picking up the mess that had overtaken her kitchen floor.
Martha, the damn rain is turning to snow,
Wilbur yelled from his rocking chair. Chadwick crossed the kitchen to look out of the lone window. The rain had indeed turned into the start of a ferocious winter storm. He sighed. Chadwick squinted as he looked through the snowy haze towards the other side of the road. A lantern, held by a shadowy figure, could be seen bobbing through the woods at a slow pace. Chadwick shook his head and turned around. Martha stood behind him, staring through the window. She hurriedly shut the curtains as Chadwick walked away from the window.
Best not to invade the goings-on of the night,
she said, hastily leaving the kitchen. Chadwick watched her as she left the room. Dak jumped up from his chair as they heard a knock on the door.
Boys, let that be. We're not expecting any company,
Martha called from the living room. Chadwick walked down the hallway to the living room, stopping as a small boy ran by him, giggling like a hyena. What is wrong with these people? Chadwick thought angrily. Why lie about having someone else here? Chadwick entered the living room and approached Wilbur's rocking chair. I just saw your grandson. I thought no one else was here with you two, Chadwick asked accusingly.
We don't have any grandchildren. We never even had children of our own,
Wilbur answered. Chadwick flinched as another knock on the door echoed through the house. Somebody wants you to answer the door, Chadwick said, his frustration rapidly growing.
It's best not to invade the goings-on of the night,
Martha said thoughtfully. Yeah, you said that a few minutes ago. What is going on around here? Chadwick asked. Another knock echoed through the house.
Chadwick!
Dak shrieked from the kitchen. Chadwick ran to the kitchen to find Dak staring out through the front window. What is it? Chadwick asked impatiently.
There's no one at the door,
Dak mumbled, still staring through the window. What the hell are you talking about? Chadwick asked, his fear beginning to grow. Chadwick didn't wait for Dak's answer, opting instead to swing the front door open angrily. Opening the door revealed a glowing white orb, precisely level with Chadwick's line of vision. Chadwick slammed the door and ran back into the kitchen to find Martha and Wilbur standing next to Dak. "Is this some kind of joke?" Chadwick asked angrily.
I wish it was, son. Come, sit down in the living room. You need to know about the Light Road curse,
Wilbur said, motioning for the boys to return to the living room. Chadwick and Dak reluctantly followed Wilbur back. They watched as Wilbur and Martha took a seat and waited for Wilbur to speak.
Many years ago, my wife Martha used our home for taking care of hospice patients as they endured their last weeks. We even built an addition to accommodate the influx of patients,
Wilbur informed them, his eyes fixed on the fire dancing in the fireplace.
Business was good, and the extra money sure did help around here. Our home was in dire need of repair, and the money we made from her business gave us all the funds we needed and more,
Wilbur continued. "What does this have to do with the fucking light banging on your door?" Chadwick asked angrily.
Hush, boy. Let him finish.
Martha snapped, pressing a wrinkled finger to her lips.
One night we received a patient from the nursing home unannounced. We didn't overthink it, as we readily accepted every patient. I signed the paperwork, and Martha brought her into her room.
Wilbur paused for a moment to light a cigar.
This new patient, her name was Livia. Well, Livia had an intrepid past of causing immense chaos wherever she passed through, unbeknownst to us. We awoke in the morning to find all 6 of our hospice patients dead in their rooms. Livia was gone. Nowhere to be found,
Wilbur said, puffing intermittently on his cigar.
Well, what happened to Livia?
Dak asked, his eyes wide.
We eventually found Livia in the woods across the street. Her naked body was covered in strange symbols that she had presumably carved into her skin herself.
What does all this have to do with the things happening in your home? Chadwick asked, his want to know more overpowering his fear for the time being.
After a lengthy investigation, the police concluded that she had many more deaths to her name than just the ones she took here. Men, women, and children. They concluded that she was insane. That was the easy answer. However, that is not the truth. The truth is, something drove her. Something lived within that woman. Now that thing resides on this road. It seeks out pure souls on most nights, hiding in shadows until it grows tired of waiting. Then, it grows angry.
Wilbur concluded the story and looked at Chadwick and Dak.
Oh my God,
Dak declared, his voice wavering. "We need to get out of here. I don't want any part of this," Chadwick declared frantically.
I'm afraid you mustn't go outside until the morning. You'll surely fall victim to it. You'll have to wait it out here in our home,
Wilbur declared, shifting his gaze from the fire to Chadwick.
God damn it!
Chadwick exclaimed angrily.
It won't be so bad, child. You and your friend are safe in here.
Martha offered, her voice softening.
Come, I'll show you boys to a room.
Rising to her feet. The boys reluctantly followed Martha down a hallway into a large bedroom.
Here we are,
Martha said, pointing towards a pair of beds opposite of each other at the far end of the room. Everything about this is fucking weird, Chadwick thought, accepting a pillow and blankets from Martha. Martha slammed the door shut on her way out of the bedroom. Chadwick and Dak shuddered as the sound of the deadbolt clicked loudly from the other side of the door.
Fuck,
Dak exclaimed, looking frantically around the room. Chadwick looked around the room as well, noticing that it had no windows and no other items inside besides the 2 beds. Son of a bitch. We fell for that one, Chadwick thought, his inability to recognize the situation unfolding frustrating him immensely.
There must be some way out of here,
Dak declared, quickly coming to the same realization that Chadwick had.
Silly boys. There's no way out from here. Your souls will soon be anchored to this place long after your bodies have rotted and decayed.
Martha cackled through the locked door. The two boys froze as a bang sounded from the wall next to them.
It won't be long. Livia's already here.
Martha screeched, her voice like nails across a chalkboard. Another bang resonated throughout the room, shaking the walls.
Dak, this isn't the end for us, bro. We are getting out of here!
Chadwick shouted, slamming his shoulder into the bedroom door. Dak joined Chadwick at the door and kicked at the door with all his might. The door began to creak and groan under the continued stress of the two boys repeatedly striking the wooden door.
Stand back, Dak,
Chadwick yelled before getting a running start and slamming into the door. The door relented, flying open into the hallway, splinters flying in all directions.
Way to go, Chadwick!
Dak shouted, chasing after Chadwick as he fled down the hallway. Chadwick suddenly began furiously backpedaling after seeing Martha coming towards him with a large butcher knife. Dak pushed past Chadwick, screaming as he fearlessly tackled Martha to the ground. Chadwick, seeing the sudden bold action of his friend, pounced on Martha immediately. Martha shrieked as Chadwick wrestled the knife from her grasp.
Don't kill her. I don't want to kill anyone.
Dak screamed, tears filling his eyes.
We are fucking leaving!
Chadwick exclaimed, holding the knife in front of his body. Martha didn't say a word. She just glared at the boys, her eyes projecting hatred in an immeasurable amount. Wilbur stood at the far end of the hallway, watching the scene before him silently. Dak and Chadwick bolted through the front door and turned down the road, continuing in a full sprint until they found the end of Light Road. The two boys paused after stepping onto Main Street. They looked back in silence. Their gaze finally settled on the lone street light, flickering on and off near the entrance of Light Road.
Ted pulled his car off the paved road and onto the gravel driveway, where his worn tires grumbled. Yeah, I get the feeling. It had been a long sales day for them both. When Ted had started selling water purifiers, everyone was in a panic about lead or chromium-6 or whatever was on the news that month. The office handed him leads by the stack. So many of those had been good that he'd got himself a boat. Now that people had moved on to the next thing to be scared about, his boat sat in some repo lot, and he was chasing leads out in the back-ass end of the woods. Stop for the day. One way or the other. Ted muttered. Then he shook his head. He looked at himself in the rearview mirror. Stop. First sale. You can do it, Teddy. Think about that commission. Catch up on rent, steak dinner, maybe a new set of tires. He flashed a grin in the mirror and winked. That's right. Another 50,000 miles worth of commissions. Think what you can do with all that cash. Now his head was clear. The rumbling from the gravel suddenly sounded like applause. All it takes is getting him locked in. Ted pulled in front of a house, a big wooden 2-story Tudor thing. The guy obviously had some money, maybe inherited. Inheritance was the best. They hadn't earned it, so they didn't know what to do with it. He took a closer look. The paint was chipping, the yard was cut short, but tall weeds stood along the tree line. Behind the house, a tin shed had its door hanging open with just a modest sedan inside. Some money, but not a lot. He rewrote his pitch while he shut off the car, grabbed his clipboard, and climbed out onto the stone porch. There was a no soliciting sign hung on a nail above a pot of dried-out flowers. It made Ted smile. Politely placed, not large. Just the kind of guy who has a hard time telling people no. He knocked on the door and then pressed the doorbell. Double encouragement. Ted waited to the count of 22 and knocked again. This time he heard footsteps inside. The lacy curtain in the window beside the door flipped back. Ted smiled and gave a nod, even though he couldn't exactly see who was looking out. It was too dark inside. All the window gave was a dusty reflection of himself. Snazzy tie, white button-up shirt, rolled at the sleeves to show he was a working man. Laminated badge for the company. The curtain closed again. Ted looked at the peephole in the door, keeping up his professional smile. Show the guy how tired you are. Lock in that emotional connection. He changed his weight from one foot to the other, hanging his head down a bit as he did. The door opened. Ted threw his head back and met the guy's gaze with his own. He was a squat guy, maybe 5'4" if he stood up straight, heavy-set. He had on a stained gray t-shirt, plaid pajama bottoms, and thick glasses. The guy's hair was greasy from generic shampoo, combed into a tight side part parents gave their kids for Christmas pictures. Hi, I'm Theodore Bridges from the Water Protection Services. Are you the homeowner here? The guy stared at him. The lenses made the edges of his eyes warp like a magnifying glass. He finally nodded. Ted went on. We're doing water sampling in the area. Would you have a minute so we can see if your water quality is above safe levels? The guy stammered. Not really. It only takes a minute, Ted assured him. He checked his wristwatch, one he'd picked up to look expensive, but not too expensive. I could be out here by 6:20 if everything goes smoothly. The guy sighed. Ted kept smiling at him. Okay, I guess. Wonderful, thank you so much. Ted stepped inside, halfway to the sale. The house was dark inside. Dark wood floors extended up the walls in waist-high wainscoting, with only a few pictures hanging on the dingy wallpaper. There was a lamp on down the hall, and it smelled like a museum. He glanced around at the pictures hanging on the wall, trying to find something he could connect with Kevin on. Most of them were photos with Kevin in them, standing alongside some actor or another in front of a comic convention screen. What's your name, sir? Ted asked. Kevin. You living out here all by yourself? The squat man shifted and grunted. I moved out here to get some quiet. I'm not much of a people person. Well, Kevin, I do want to thank you again for your time. It's unbelievable how many people have unsafe water and they don't even know it. Kevin gripped the collar of his t-shirt with a fist. Really? It's true, Ted assured him. Probably, internationally speaking. It's actually a good thing there's been so much press about it recently. Pipes get old, begin to break down, and who knows what ends up in our water. Kevin nodded. Yeah, I heard about that on the news. It's a lifesaver. You might be drinking the same thing your whole life, not knowing a thing about it until you end up at the doctor with cancer. Cancer? Kevin shrieked. Ted put a hand on his shoulder. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to scare you or anything. In fact, that's why I'm here. I just want everyone to be safe. Kevin nodded and even smiled with a curled lip. He had a gap in his teeth. Yeah, cool. Where's your kitchen, Kevin? That's usually the best place to start. The kitchen had white-painted cabinets and a checkered linoleum floor. It would have been the height of fashion a few decades back. The stove was that old, although the fridge was new, stainless steel. Ted pulled his bag testing kit from his pocket and tore off the perforated plastic top. Kevin ogled it. Ted could almost hear the lock clicking. He laid out the plastic valves carefully, waving a hand at each like a model on a game show. The same moves he used back when he sold knives. Then he took the big one labeled Your Water tested and pointed at the kitchen faucet. If I may? Kevin nodded. Uh-huh. Ted turned the faucet handle. It squeaked a bit. He imagined all the potential filings that might peel off the edge of the valve and help land the sail, but he made his face serious. There. Ted set the water on the counter next to the rest of the kit. Now, those bubbles. Nothing to worry about. That's just from your aerator in the faucet. That's right. You can trust me. Okay. Kevin moved close, looking down to put his eyes on level with the countertop. Ted picked up one of the droppers. What I have here is a binding substance. What it'll do is bring the minerals together so they can get a look at them. Maybe I have mineral water in my faucet, said Kevin, snorting a laugh. Ha! Ted laughed along. Then he turned it into a sigh and shook his head. Although you wouldn't want it, really. Who knows what those minerals are doing to your plumbing, let alone to your body. Kevin backed up from the counter several inches. Okay, well, let's see. We might not have anything to worry about anyway. Ted squirted the dropper into the water and gave it a stir with a plastic rod. Just as they always did, little specks began to show up. Kevin's mouth fell open. Ted grinned. What was it the fellow said? Science is knowing one thing more than the next guy. Magic is knowing two things more. So, I do have some mineral water? Kevin asked, his voice soft. Ted patted him on the shoulder. The guy's shirt was starchy. Well, I'm afraid so. But it might not be anything to worry about, health-wise. Let me try a couple of tests to see what we're dealing with exactly. Could be anything with what people are dumping into city drains these days. Kevin stood up and sniffed. But I'm on my own well. Wouldn't you know that? I certainly should have guessed that, you being out here. Ted said quickly. That could be even more dangerous, you know. Kevin just squinted at him from behind his thick glasses. Here, Ted offered, holding out 3 new droppers. Why don't you squirt these yourselves? I'll divide what we've tested so far into 3 different tubes, and we'll see what we're dealing with. Kevin's stubby fingers took the droppers from him. Ted lined up the tubes on the counter and let him spray into each one. Now, ideally, Ted said, slowing his words to time the reveal, we won't see any changes at all, but sometimes, right on schedule, the water in the tubes changed. 1 vibrant red, 1 dark blue, and 1 piss yellow. Oh, wow, Ted mumbled. What? Kevin asked. Ted shook his head. It's just all 3 of them. What? Kevin's voice cracked. Ted wondered if there were tears welling up behind those glasses. There are definitely minerals and chemicals in your water. He flipped open his clipboard and looked at the pre-generated charts. I'd say we're looking at chlorine levels of 3 to 4, hardness 6.1, and even some biologics just past the caution matrix. Kevin gulped. What's that mean? I don't know exactly myself. It means you aren't in immediate danger, but I'd warn against running this water all the time. You can't always trust those safety standards set out by the government. But aren't you with the government? Like the water board or something? I'm with the Water Protection Services. We're here to help make sure that your water's safe. Kevin glared. His lip curled up again, not smiling this time. I'm sorry if there's a miscommunication. Ted held him fast. He held up his badge and then pointed at the colored water. I just want to help you with your water, and it's a good thing I did. Look at those tests. Kevin looked at both and then back at him. Maybe you should go. I need to get back to my computer anyway, my auction. Well, I couldn't leave in good faith without offering you some options, Ted told him. He pulled the folder of brochures from the back of his clipboard and stuffed it into Kevin's hands. Kevin unfolded it. Ted launched into his pitch. So, with your own well, How much do you spend on filters and treatment chemicals monthly? Oh, gosh, I'd have to check my budget. Said like a man who knows exactly. We could probably save you money on those alone. What would you say, $30? $60? Probably. I could get you a full filtration system for less than $20 a month. Kevin sniffed and held his face close to the papers. He then shook his head and looked up. Can this wait until after my auction? Self-motivated. Ted's smile widened to a grin. Will only be a minute, really. Is your water safety a priority? Kevin scratched his head, mussing the plank of hair into a new angle. I guess. Besides, since we work at a national level, we can buy from our suppliers in bulk and pass the savings on to you. Where do you typically get your filters from? Ted hit all the beats. It's not just about saving you money, it's an investment in your lifestyle. Hard water damage costs the average consumer potentially $800 each year. With maintenance decreased, you'll have more time to spend with loved ones. Kevin listened, shuffled through the papers, and leaned on the counter. He tried to go sit at the table at one point, but Ted kept him close to the colorful tubes of what had once been his water. I gotta go, Kevin would mumble every few minutes. Oh, absolutely, Ted would agree. Let's see which model is right for you. With your lifestyle, would you rather finance or save with upfront purchasing? The guy was ready to crack. Ted just knew it. Gotta keep them locked in. Somewhere in the depths of the dark house, a grandfather clock rang out its haunting song. Then it chimed 1. Kevin dropped the blue folder, sending pages with smiling people holding glasses of water all over the kitchen floor. Oh, crap. Before Ted could say anything, Kevin tore out of the room, throwing one stomping foot ahead of the other. The thuds went far into the house and then upstairs. Ted took in a breath of the musty house. He knelt down to pick up the pages. It's all right. When he comes back, we just hook him again. You've got this. A screech that sounded like it came from an animal ripped through the air. Ted's skin prickled. He slowly stood up from the floor, leaning to get a better look through the door to the hallway. Kevin, everything okay? Horrible grunts came from the hall, then thuds of furniture being overturned. Crud, was all Ted could say. He looked at the papers. Maybe I should just go. He shook his head. He'd made this headway with a customer. All he had to do was seal the deal. It might take longer now, but the commission would be worth it. Kevin let out a shrieking laugh upstairs. See? Probably won whatever it was, anyway. Ted put all of the papers back in the brochure when Kevin appeared at the kitchen door. Ted actually jumped. He placed a hand over his pounding heart. Oh, hey, sorry, I didn't hear you come down the stairs. Kevin had his lips pressed tightly together. He snorted through his nose. His hands were behind his back. So, let's get back to this, Ted said, trying to smile. We could go with the standard model to save you some money, but if you ever plan on... You made me miss my bid, Kevin mumbled. Oh. Ted rolled his head to the side and grimaced. I'm sorry. Maybe we could get your payment figured out and then we... You! Kevin screamed. Ted bumped into the kitchen counter. Made me miss my bid! Kevin panted for air. I said I was sorry, Ted told him. Kevin's voice came calmly. You made me miss my bid. Maybe I can make it up to you. We have partners with a lot of great companies for coupons on things you already use. Kevin shook his head. He took his hand from behind his back and raised a revolver to arm's length. Ted gasped through his nose. He threw up his hands. No, Kevin, easy. You made me miss my bid. Do you know how long I've been waiting on that? No, you don't. You don't care about anything but stupid water. Now I'm going to make you miss something. Kevin, You don't want to do anything like that. Oh, I do. Kevin's eyes were wide behind the glasses. You made me stand here. My feet hurt, but you wouldn't let me sit down. You lied to me. I never lied to you, Kevin. I just wanted to help you with your... Shut up! Kevin waved the gun toward the front of the house. Go! Ted nodded slowly. He realized he was holding his hands up. Okay, I'll go. I'm sorry things happen like this. He left his test kit on the counter and the folder on the table. He thought about going for his clipboard. No, don't. Just get out of here as fast as you can. Ted walked sideways out of the kitchen. Kevin sniffed and kept waving the gun. He kept his eyes on Kevin's thick glasses. Listen, I am sorry. Shut up! Ted backed his way down the dark hall. The photographs of Kevin all leered at him with their wrinkled smiles. The real Kevin only glared, his lips drooping. Ted's hips bumped into the front door. He choked out a laugh and fumbled for the knob to open it. All right, here we go. Kevin sniffed again. Ted's hands were sweaty. The brass knob wouldn't turn right. Kevin growled. He changed his grip, putting both hands on the revolver. No, don't. I'm sorry, Ted stammered. Finally, the knob moved. The door swung free and Ted ducked behind it. He slammed it shut behind him. Go, move, he said to himself. His shoes slid as he scampered across the stone porch. He fell flat and rolled down the stairs. Oh, no, you don't, he heard Kevin yell. Then he heard the gunshot. It was a pop, loud, but not as loud as Ted thought it would be. He wondered if he had made a mistake. Maybe Kevin never would have shot at him if he'd just walked to the car and not made a break for it. Now he was on his feet, running across the tangled grass and gravel. There was another pop. Something heavy slammed into Ted's arm. It pushed him to the ground. Then his arm felt like it was on fire. At first, Ted didn't know what to think, but when he touched it and pulled black blood on his fingers, it was obvious. He'd never been shot before. The world around his hands spun around, blurring like a melted painting. On the porch, Kevin cackled. Ted squeezed his eyes shut and groaned. He was gasping for air. Slow down. Get a grip. He pushed his mouth closed and pulled in 3 deep breaths through his nose. When he opened his eyes again, the world wasn't spinning anymore. Kevin stood on the porch, gun still in his hand. You can't do this, Kevin, Ted called at him. People are going to hear you. Out here, people just think this one's hunting. Ted winced. I'll go, just let me. Kevin came down the stairs, sticking out his thick left leg, to step down before drawing his right leg in, then repeating with the next step. Oh, you're not going anywhere, not for a while. Please, Kevin. No. Kevin said, waving the gun at him as he trudged closer. Get up. Ted tried to say something, anything, but his throat was stuck. Get up, moron. Kevin shouted. He stuck the gun straight at Ted's face. Ted took several quick breaths and then rolled over on his stomach. His arm felt like he jammed it against the stove. He pushed up with his good arm onto his knees. You're going to learn your lesson. Kevin told him. You're going to be thinking, oh, I need to go to a hospital. His voice was sing-song. Then, but you can't. Not until I give you permission. Kevin, just let me go. No! Kevin shouted. He moved the gun into one hand and pointed with the other toward the tin shed. Now move. Ted climbed to his feet. His vision went dark for a moment, and his ears buzzed. He took in another deep breath and waited until he could see clearly again. Something shoved his hip. Hold it. He looked back over his shoulder. It was Kevin's hand digging out his cell phone. Ted gritted his teeth and shuffled forward. The grass felt slippery under his shoes. His knees were loose. The world shifted again, with the shed falling backward until it looked like it was a half-mile away. Then it came back, and he could lean against the warm tin door. It felt good on his head. "Open it," Kevin told him. Ted looked at the big latch next to him. He grabbed it and pulled, straining to make it budge. The door rolled on a rough track. He was sweating and panting just to crack it open wide enough for a person to slip through. Inside. Ted started to shake. Tears blurred his vision this time. "Please, not like this. Go!" The shed was even darker and mustier than the house. An old Mustang sat beside a workbench strewn with tools, some new, some decades old. On the other side was a metal door built into the ground. Kevin grunted behind him, and the door squealed as he pushed it open further. "All right, get in the shelter." Ted took a step forward and then stopped. "What?" "The storm shelter, stupid. The sliding door there. Slide it open." Ted dropped to his knees on the concrete floor of the shed beside the door. A small hook held the door in place. When he unhooked it, the door moved freely under his palm. It opened to an artificial cave, black as night inside. He could see the first 3 metal steps, but everything beyond it was darkness. "Don't worry, there's no snakes," Kevin said. He snorted out a laugh again. Ted looked up at him. Kevin wrinkled his nose, shoving his thick glasses upward. The revolver clicked in his hand. "Get in there." Ted nodded and crawled down the steps. It was cool inside. He liked the hard, smooth metal against his hands. The meager light shifted, throwing Kevin's round shadow. "Now you'll see what it's like to have to sit and wait on somebody for no reason." The door rolled shut, and everything was in black shadow. Reality settled in. Ted sucked in a gasp of the metallic air. "Wait, no, don't!" Kevin just grunted. Ted could hear a chain rattling. Then the door rattled. Then came a final clunk, and everything went still. Ted crawled back up the metal steps. He yanked on the door with his good arm. "Don't bother trying." Kevin's voice was muffled. "I'll be back for you when I feel like it." The shed door whined and groaned. Then Ted's breathing was all there was. He sat there for a moment, just breathing. He touched the spot on his upper arm where he'd been shot. The pain from his fingers was sharp at the top, like a blister. You have to do something about it. With his good hand, he pulled the laminated badge over his head. It clattered somewhere on the metal floor below. Then he unbuttoned his shirt 1 button at a time. His fingers were slippery. Ted didn't know whether it was from sweat or blood from touching his arm before. He tried not to think about it. All he focused on was getting his shirt off. Once the buttons were done, he rolled his good shoulder, slipping that arm free. Then he rolled the shirt around to his right side. He gritted his teeth and pulled. Hot pain ripped up his shoulder and down to his pulsating fingertips below. Finally, it slipped free. "No!" Ted felt for it in the dark. Had it fallen on the ground? Who knew what would be on it? No, here it was, on your lap. Ted unclasped his belt and wriggled it free. Biting the belt, he wound up his shirt into as rough a bandage as he could. Then he wanted to feel around in the shelter. Maybe there was a flashlight or even a real first aid kit. But what about black widows, brown recluses? He didn't want to bite from who knows what on top of all of this. So he sat. He waited. He listened to himself breathe. He tightened the belt on his arm every few breaths. The stabs of pain were duller each time he did. Ted wondered if he'd fallen asleep at some point. He couldn't really tell when his eyes were opened or closed. Memories flickered through his head, or were they dreams? His apartment would be sitting empty all night. He doubted anyone would even notice. He mapped the quickest way to the hospital once he was back in his car. Did Kevin do anything to it? Maybe that was the fat suck's plan. look at the brakes so that when Ted sped out of here, he'd go careening into a tree and the whole thing would look like a traffic accident. The shed door whined and brownish light slid into the corners of the shelter. Ted sat up. He heard sniffling, gasping, coughing. Was Kevin crying? Kevin, he called. Oh, man. Kevin's muffled voice floated down. I screwed up. I really screwed up. Ted climbed up the metal stairs to the edge of the sliding door. Kevin, let me out. I can't. Yes, you can, Kevin. Come on. No. I screwed up big time. We can make this work, Kevin. Just let me out and we'll figure it all out. I could just walk away. I shot you. It's okay. I'll be okay, Kevin. Just let me out and I'll go to the doctor. Kevin let out a long wail, and you'll tell him I shot you. I won't tell anybody, I promise, Kevin. But you'll have to at the hospital. I'll say I was goofing around with some buddies. It's fine. Just let me out, Kevin. I can't. Yes, you can. Kevin groaned. I moved out here so people would stop bothering me. But still, you bothered me. Why did you have to bother me? I'm sorry, Kevin. I'll never bother you again. Just let me out. I'll drive away and you'll never see me again. You'll call the cops. I won't call the cops, Kevin. I won't tell anybody, please. Kevin whimpered something too soft to hear through the door. Ted knocked on the door with his good arm. Seriously, Kevin, I promise. Anything you want. There's only one thing. Name it, Kevin. We can make this work. I'm going to start the car. Ted blinked. Car? My car? Why are you starting the car, Kevin? You don't need to. It's all I can think of. You don't have to think of anything. Just let me out. I'll handle everything. He'll put me in prison. I don't want to go to prison. I told you I won't tell anyone. Ted knocked again on the door. Please, Kevin, hurry up. I think something crawled on my leg. It doesn't matter anymore. Sure it does, Kevin. Hurry. Open this thing up. No, you'll get out. You have to let me out, Kevin. Do it. It's the right thing. The only thing now is to start the car. But I have to close the door first. The shed door squealed on its rollers and slammed with a thud. Ted's eyes pulled so wide they hurt. Running the car inside the shed would fill it with exhaust. He scratched at the corners of the shelter. Don't do that, Kevin. You can't start the car with the door closed. I have to, he said with a grunt. I screwed up so bad, this is the only way to fix it. Killing us won't fix anything. It'll make it stop. All I wanted was to bid on Amazing Spider-Man #2. You know how rare that one is? It almost never comes up. But you had to ring the doorbell. And I missed it. And I got mad. I screwed it up. Ted started panting. It's okay, Kevin. I forgive you. I won't tell anybody. It's my fault. Just let me out and I'll fix it. Kevin didn't say anything. You hear me, Kevin? I can fix it. Ted waited a beat. Hey, Kevin, seriously. It's not bad. Even just a scratch. I'm fine. And soon everything will be okay. Then he heard the car door open. I'll make it okay. Kevin mumbled. No, Kevin, Ted screamed. Let me out first, Kevin. The Mustang started with a hum, then a roar. The engine revved a few times while Kevin played with the accelerator. Kevin! Ted screamed. The engine revved again. He pounded against the door. Don't do this, Kevin. Stop it. I'm locked in. The engine growled. Ted screamed and pounded, but soon he couldn't even hear himself over the Mustang. The air started to feel thick. Ted stopped to breathe. Maybe it's the exertion. Maybe there's enough gaps in the shed that the monoxide will get out. Maybe the shelter's tight enough it won't get in here. He couldn't keep lying to himself. Ted started pounding on the door again. Kevin! Open this door, Kevin! I'll do anything you want. Just let me out. Only the droning rumble of the engine replied, going on without stopping, no matter what Ted said.
A tall, well-built man stood in a lavishly decorated Victorian-style living room, staring into a full-length mirror with an ornate golden frame. There was nothing reflected, no image in the glass looking back at him, nothing but the shimmer that the overhead light cast upon the pane. "It might as well be a window," he said, his voice laced with frustration. "It shows me nothing but clear, empty glass. It is an entirely useless piece of furniture, trash that hangs upon our wall. What is the purpose? It's not even so much a decoration. It should shatter into so many pieces. I should take it outside and throw it directly into the dumpster with the rest of society's useless garbage. Every time I lay eyes on it, the sight of it angers me. It taunts me. A cruel trick to play on myself. And for what?" Nearby, a thick-bodied, voluptuous woman with an enormous wave of blonde hair and 2 big golden hoop earrings rolled her eyes. "Why does this suddenly matter so much to you, Samuel?" she said through red-painted lips. "None of us have reflections. That's just how it goes. And a window would show through to what's on the other side. That's a dumb comparison. You can't see through the mirror. You would think maybe lacking a reflection would tame your ego and lessen your vanity to a degree, but it seems not." Samuel rubbed at his face with his hands, feeling the features, tracing the point of his nose with his fingertips, that sharpness of his cheekbones. He was like the blind, trying to discern the features of a face by touch alone. "This is not about vanity, you irritating cow. This is about life, about purpose, the reason for being, existence, everything. It matters, Luann, because I can't see myself. Who am I then, really? I don't even know what I look like. Am I just supposed to take your word for it? How can I be vain without an identity? The eyes are the windows to the soul, and I can't see my own, Luann. I'm blind to my own self. If you took a minute to actually think about things, you would realize that you are in the same boat, and it would be equally disturbing, but you are too simple for that." Luann glared at him. Her own anger contorted her delicate features, making them seem harder. It brought out the edges in her rounded face. "Simple? Because I choose not to focus on things I cannot change? Because I don't want to sit around like you and wallow about the things that have always been this way? You ask what the point is, Samuel. What is the point of that? It's entirely ridiculous, and you keep attacking me just because you're frustrated and upset, and I don't have to accept that from you." Samuel sighed. He lifted his arms and then let them fall limply to his sides like broken wings. "You're right. It's not your fault. I just don't understand how you can take this so lightly, how you can be so unbothered. I want to know who I am. I want to know where my blemishes are, see the minute details of my face. Do I have crow's feet next to my eyes? Is there a birthmark somewhere? A mole or a freckle? Maybe even a scar? I've definitely had plenty of opportunities to earn some. Maybe I'm completely covered, Luann. Maybe I am just a mass of scar tissue. Perhaps my appearance is something truly monstrous." Luann closed the distance and put a supportive hand on his arm, her fingertips tracing lines over the firmness of his bicep. "You look gorgeous, lover. You look just as you did 100 years ago. There are no scars or blemishes. You are flawless skin and high cheekbones. Let it rest, please." Samuel sighed and pulled away from her. "And I have to simply trust your word because I can't see for myself. I could be hideous, and you could be lying right now, and I would never know. How could I know? What kind of life is it where I have to trust you more than my own self? How is that a life worth living, Luann? Can you really not see the problem with this? You don't know what you look like either. Look at the mirror. I'm serious. Do it. Go on. Look at it. Tell me what you see when you look at it. What do you see, Luann? Nothing. You see nothing because you're just like me. You see glass just as I do, window or no window. How does that sit so well with you? Look at it. Think about it, and then answer me honestly. Don't shut me out. Don't ignore the truth. You want me to stop? Indulge me for a moment. Look at it and tell me. Luann huffed and threw her arms up. She stomped over and stood before the long wall mirror. She stared for a moment, then said, "Yes, I don't see anything. I also don't need to see anything because I've never seen anything and I've grown accustomed to that. That is who I am. I am being honest with you. I am always honest with you. There has never been a day when I haven't been honest with you. I have absolutely no reason to lie. It doesn't send me into crisis looking at a mirror, Samuel. I'm sorry. I don't know why. Because it just is, I guess. It just is, and I'm okay with that because it's reality. Because I accept things how they are. The things I cannot change. Because it will only drive me insane not to, and you are the living proof of that. Now, the only thing driving me insane is you. But I'm not living, Luann. Even if I were alive, I wouldn't be living, not without an identity and a sense of self. What kind of life is that? No, I'm merely existing, Luann. Simply existing, nothing more. I might as well be a ghost. Luann growled. She turned away from the reflectionless mirror to face him. What is the point of all this fussing? Dwelling on things like this does nothing but hurt you. Hurt us both. What good could possibly come of this? What do you hope to gain by thinking about things like this all the time? You dwell on it and you incessantly talk about it, and it is causing both of us grief. Maybe you should go back to therapy, Samuel. I think maybe a professional will be better equipped to see you through this than I am. We just talk in circles. It isn't helping anyone. Samuel groaned with disgust and moved around her to once again stare back at the mirror. I want to know who I actually am, not who you say I am. How can I know who I am inside if I don't know who I am on the outside? They coincide, don't they? Can you have one without the other? Not truly. It's not real. None of it is real. I have no sense of self at all. I'm a walking illusion and the brunt of my own trick, a sad, sorry magician. I'm a picture without an image, an empty canvas, a television with no power. I am an enigma. I am my own greatest puzzle, Luann, and I haven't the faintest idea how to solve it. Luann cussed under her breath. She whirled to face him. She was trembling with her growing rage now. I'll tell you who you are, she said angrily. You're an overdramatic, self-important baby. You're a whiny little brat that is so self-involved that you can't even live your life if you can't stare at your own damned face. It's sickening. You know, humans are the same way, and that's what drives them to so many terrible decisions. They have ridiculous beauty standards and torture themselves for them. Maybe if no one had reflections, people would care more about the things in life that contain actual value, like companionship and love, compassion and empathy. Maybe then this pitiful world would be a better place. You dare to talk to me about compassion and empathy? Samuel bellowed in return. Where is my compassion? Where is my empathy? Are you nothing more than a hypocrite? Self-important. You call me self-important? I don't even have a self, he yelled as she stormed out of the room and slammed the door behind her. How can I be self-important without a self? Sighing, Samuel sat down in a nearby chair. It was a red velvet smoking chair acquired from a lounge where Luann used to sing a long time ago, a time when he had more vitality and they both had more hunger. The lounge provided a means to satiate their appetites. So, are you going to lock yourself in the bedroom now? Is that today's game? He called to her. Are you a helpless abuse victim because your 300-year-old boyfriend is having an existential crisis? Why don't you call one of your girlfriends while you're in there and tell them how awful I am? I'm suffering, Luann. I'm suffering and you don't give a shit. You find my pain too much of a bother. Admit it. I mean nothing to you anymore. If anyone is awful here, it's you. Fine, she called back through the door from the other room. I'm awful and terrible. That's fine with me at this point. Just shut up. Please, I can't listen to any more of this. I tried to empathize. I tried to understand. I tried to be supportive. It got me nowhere. It never gets me anywhere. You are just impossible, so I give up. Just internalize it so I can get through the day with less of a headache. Samuel gave a humorless laugh. You toot your own horn more than you should, woman. You are horribly insensitive. I'm sorry that I can't get over this so quickly and be the man you wish me to be. If I could just blink and the pain would be gone, I would do that. Don't you think I would do that? But I can't. How am I supposed to get over this when it's always there? It never changes, never goes away. Like you said yourself just a minute ago, it just is. It always is. There is no remedy, no solution. It's an eternal emotional torment. It's torture. This is the true curse of being a vampire. It's horrible, Luann. There was a crash like she threw something against the wall in the other room. Oh my God, Samuel. So is living with you. It literally is. It is an eternal fucking torment. It never ends. We're immortal and you just complain and cry and philosophize, and it's a vicious cycle that never changes and never ends. Can you please just give me a minute of goddamned quiet? I can't take this anymore. I really can't. You can't take anymore? You can't? Yes. Do you know I tried to stake myself the other day? I really did. You didn't know, though, because you don't ever see the pain I'm in. You don't see what I deal with on a regular basis because life is just so simple and fun to you. You can't see past the next party. You're not 23, Luann. You're an old woman, even if you don't look it. But maybe you do. Maybe everyone is lying to you. Maybe I'm lying to you. Maybe you're a shriveled old hag, but you just can't see it because there's nothing in the damned mirror. He panted his anger for a moment, leaning forward in the chair and gripping the arms with his thin white fingers topped with long black nails. Well, that's fine, Luann. I'll be quiet and not speak about my feelings, and one day you can just find my corpse. That's just fine. I don't even care what you do with it. It would probably look disgusting, but how would I know truly, right? Throw it and the mirror in the dump with the human filth and waste. What do I care? The bedroom door flew open and collided with the wall, stopping with a bang. Stop it! Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it! Just shut up! I mean it! I can't listen to this day in and day out. Stop! Luann ran back into the room angrily. She charged right at him, her overwhelming emotion making her shake like a volcano about to rupture. Oh, so now you're going to hit me? He said, looking up at her with doe eyes. I suppose this is your idea of empathy and compassion. Maybe we have different definitions of those words. Which one of us is the selfish one, really? I think you really need to ask yourself, Luann. Sit and marinate in that for a bit. Reflect on this moment and try to see yourself clearly. That, after all, is the whole problem, isn't it? Are you being serious right now? You are such an infuriating person. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, Samuel, because your inside is ugly. It's downright repulsive. You're an awful person. I'm about to ghost you like your reflection, and then if you do get up the guts to kill yourself, it won't be me finding the body. Maybe no one will, and you will just stay right here and rot. And then your outside finally will truly match your inside. Beautiful. Well, that's a lovely thing to say. Thank you. You're a true charmer. And trying to guilt me with your suicide is better? Please. I'm over this. I'm over you.
I just can't do it anymore. We tired of each other years ago, and you know it as well as I do. We aren't together because we care about each other, and you know it. So let's stop pretending. We were together all this time because we didn't want to be alone. That's it. That's the plain and simple truth of it. It was a life of convenience, a relationship built on the curse of the meaningless existence of immortality you so loathe.
Samuel looked up at her, hope twinkling in his eye now. So you admit it is meaningless, yet you don't believe the lack of meaning is tied to the lack of an image. It is just more proof that nothing is real. Everything we know of ourselves comes from someone else. It is all conjecture. Everything is subjective. How could being immortal be anything but a curse if you have no idea who you even are? If you have no purpose, nothing to live for.
You're painfully redundant, Samuel. I don't care if that has to do with your reflection or not. I care about not listening to it anymore, period.
Samuel watched her leave and jumped when she slammed the door. He continued talking to her as if she was still there. Self-important. Ha! Self should be important. If you don't have yourself, you have nothing. It is something that humans are always concerned with. Why should I not be the same? We're supposed to be superior to them. We shouldn't be forbidden to do things that come naturally to lesser beings. Is it forbidden for our kind to search for the truth of our own identity? Maybe we never get to have a coming-of-age story because we never come of age. Have you thought about that? I doubt it because you don't bother to think about anything. You are so thick and so hollow. I suppose that makes you lucky. It is the people that are like you that succeed in this life, or whatever you choose to call it. The people who fail to look deeper into anything, who just coast on by without a care. Is that how our kind is supposed to be? Is that what was intended for me? Do I suffer simply because I am a deeper, more intricate person? People like us just go on endlessly. However, they were the moment they became eternal. It is exhausting, this tireless life. Can you find irony in that? I'm glad you're gone. Stay gone. I don't care. Samuel dragged himself to his feet. He shuffled to the bathroom in somnambulistic fashion and turned on the shower. Then he stripped down as the steam began to rise like smoke drifting from the clawfoot bathtub. Mindlessly, Samuel stepped into the hot water. He looked out at his arms, his legs, the parts of him that he was able to see, his belly and genitals. It felt like possession, taking someone else over and looking through their eyes. None of it felt like this. Samuel spoke out loud over the incessant patter of the beating water. Whose arms and legs are these really? They belong to me, I suppose, but who am I? I can look down at this chest, this stomach, this member that stopped being able to create life centuries ago. None of it means anything without a face. Without a face, it could belong to anyone, a robot even, a machine. He was crying now, his tears racing the rivulets of shower water down his pale flesh, falling from the face he couldn't see. The face is what makes it all belong, makes it real unique, its own. These are all just pieces of a generic phantom body that belongs to no one or anyone all the same. You can attach any face to it and it will suddenly change and become a person, a very specific person, but my view contains no face. I am a faceless entity walking through immortality without direction. We all are. That is our fate, our curse. We are granted forever, but not as people, as nothing, as nothing. Later, when Samuel was dry and wrapped in his red velvet bathrobe, a cigarette hanging from a stranger's lips but making him cough nonetheless, he sat at his desk, eyes that to him were neither pretty or hideous, staring at the screen of his open Chromebook. You can search on the internet for anything. Luann can't help me, but someone can, and I can find them here. You can find anything you want on the computer these days, except for your own goddamned reflection in the blank screen. His fingers traced over the screen as it came to life and the wallpaper rose from the darkness in bright color. If only he could do the same. My photo file folder is empty because I can't take photos. Selfies are images of an empty room. There's nothing to show me to myself, no medium with which to see my true guise. I can photograph the room, the humans that pretend not to be afraid of me, the food on my plate, but never myself, not even the hands and feet I can see in the shower. Pictures come out without me in them, and that's not supposed to bother me? My memories can't be preserved, my special moments held on to. Yet I get to see everyone else that was there, not others with me like Luann, but I get to see the frozen moment in time for all the strangers, the humans, the people that meant nothing and bring nothing to my life. I get to see them getting what I can never have. Samuel looked over at a broad draped across the bedpost behind him and he snarled, "How can she live with that so easily? Something is wrong with her, not me." Then he looked back at the screen and his eyes lit up. His mouth fell open. He wondered what it all looked like. There was a profile on the screen that called to him, and now he would return the favor. "Ah, you're perfect," he said to the person on his screen, staring back at him unknowingly. "You have such elegant style. It's exquisite, real, beautiful, and tragic all the same. I believe I have found the one I am looking for. Now I'll just email you my address and list a job offer that you will be unable to refuse that is only available if you come right away. And send. That should do. Soon I will have solved this eternal crisis. You see that, Luann? I am not just content to be a victim. I got to work. I found a solution. What are you doing? You're probably out there getting drunk again, dancing with your food. Pathetic." It wasn't long before the knocking sounded at the door. His job offer answered. Samuel could feel the human on the other side of the door. He could hear the nervous thrumming of their heart. When Samuel answered the door, he made sure to make eye contact with the thin millennial adorning an even thinner goatee that stood before him complacently, his eyes glassy. "You're here because I love your art," Samuel said to him. The young man just stared back, his gaze blank and his body motionless, though the heart in his chest continued to pound. "You are going to use that art to be my personal mirror. You will provide me with the one thing that God's curse has stolen from me, a reflection. This is not negotiable. This is just the way. You will live here now and you will only paint, and paint what I tell you, nothing else. I will allow you breaks to eat and sleep and have sex if I'm in the mood, but you will only do so when I condone it, as they are only being afforded to you as a means of survival so that you may continue painting. Not if you understand." The young man made his first movement since his arrival, just the slight bob of his head. "Good," Samuel told him. "You belong to me now, mirror. Welcome home." Later that day, Samuel watched the glassy-eyed young man put his brush down and then push his seat back with a loud screech. Samuel smiled and suddenly wished he had for the painting the man had just done. He wondered what his smile looked like. Was it awkward? Did it fit his face? Were his teeth straight? Unconsciously, he reached up and touched them, running his fingertips over the ivory. Samuel stood with a stretch, his robe hanging open and his nakedness showing. There was no reason to hide himself from his current company. Humans wouldn't hide from their own mirror, would they? There would be irony if they did, taking for granted the gift that had been afforded them. "You have done as you were told without question or complaint. You have done well," Samuel said to the painter, who sat up straight 3 feet behind his easel, his hands on his lap and his brown eyes staring blankly forward. "You may rest for a moment. Now that you have finished your first canvas, I want to look at it, to take it in, to see what the photos erase." Samuel walked over and looked at the painting standing idly by on the wooden easel. "You did a wonderful job, mirror. There is so much detail. I made the right choice when I selected you for this position. I feel quite pleased, my young painter. Quite pleased indeed. Go, eat or sleep or wash yourself. I don't care what you do as long as you don't leave. You are forbidden to leave, and if you try to, I will hang you on the wall where the other mirror currently resides." The painter stood, his arms falling from his lap to hang limply at his sides. He walked into the bedroom where he climbed onto the bed and laid there flat on his back, empty eyes staring at the ceiling. Samuel growled at the furious beating of the man's heart that thrummed in his ears and screamed to his blood. He wished the organ would settle down. Why was it so stubborn and unwilling to comply like the rest of the fellow was? It made it hard for Samuel to concentrate and appreciate the art he held in his hands. Maybe if he bled the man just a little, it wouldn't be quite so loud. Samuel set the painting down gently on the nearby love seat, and then he walked with purposeful strides into the bedroom. The young man on the bed did not turn to look at him. He kept those woeful brown eyes on the diamond chandelier hanging above. His heart was like a war drum now, pounding and thrashing like tidal waves at a beachfront. Samuel snarled. He snatched the young painter's arm up and gnashed his teeth into the wrist. Immediately, hot blood flowed into his mouth, over his tongue, and the sensation of it sent tremors running through him. He moaned with delight, but then ripped the arm away from himself and threw it down onto the golden-trimmed white down comforter. He couldn't allow himself to get carried away and lose his mirror now that he finally had one. Samuel took a deep breath and sighed contentedly now that the mirror's heartbeat was weaker, calmer. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, turned on his heel, and marched back into the living room where he immediately picked up the canvas and took its place on the love seat. "This is me," Samuel said. "My nose is so pointy, but my eyes are such a wonderful shade of blue. I can see the details, the flaws and blemishes. I do in fact have a small mole on my right cheekbone, it seems." He couldn't help but laugh. "I had no idea it was there until this very moment. This is exciting. I feel more whole already. I am thankful to you and your talent, my beautiful mirror. Luann was right, you know. I really am quite handsome." "Yes, you are." The voice came from the man laying atop Samuel's bed, despite his eyes being glued to the sparkling fixture dangling from the cathedral-style ceiling and his body remaining as motionless as a corpse. "I'm not smiling in this painting, though," Samuel called back to him. "It's not your fault, though. I haven't smiled in years, not until today. That's exactly why I needed you so much. It is the reason you are here, to help me rediscover a reason to smile. I have found the answer to my pain, my eternal struggle and internal damnation, and that answer is you. I can smile for the next painting, and it won't be quite so forced. I will do my best to hold a smile and still keep it genuine for you. Paint me looking content. Your break is over, mirror." "Okay." At once the painter rose like the movie portrayal of a vampire awakening from coffin sleep. He sat straight up, then he swung himself sideways, his legs going over the edge of the big bed. "Wait, I'm going to change my outfit. Let us have some variety. This is art, after all." "Okay," the young man answered in a trance-like way. He sat there on the side of the bed, his hands folded in his lap and staring blankly forward, where he waited for further instructions. Several days later, Samuel paced the living room. It was a far different room than the one that Luann had exited and the painter had entered. All the old art was gone. The useless wall-length mirror was gone. Everything was covered in paintings and drawings, charcoals and pencils. Sketches of Samuel's face in a multitude of expressions and outfits stared back at him from every wall. The bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen were no different. Samuel stopped his pacing and stood before the pallid young man known only as Mirror for months now, who sat on the couch as per usual, his hands in his lap, his deep sunken brown eyes staring aimlessly out over gaunt cheeks. Samuel had been forced to bleed him little by little over time in order to contain the impulse to devour the boy completely. It was the only way to quiet his terrified, thrashing heart. At this rate, even with food and sleep, the mirror was going to break and Samuel would be cast back to stage 1. "When you first came here, it was very exciting to me. It was the missing piece to my puzzle, until it wasn't," Samuel said to the painter seated before him. "Now, this apartment is full of paintings done in different mediums and even pencil drawings of me, in all of my various outfits, and
every different hairstyle I could conceive. Now that I could see it, I wanted to try them all, to know which actually worked best with the shape of my face, something I was never able to experiment with before. It was great fun and a truly rewarding experience. Wonderful, Master. I am glad you are happy.
I'm not finished.
Samuel trembled with anger, squeezed his hands into fists, his elongated nails biting into his own palms and drawing blood that dripped rhythmically onto the floor at his feet. My apologies. I misunderstood.
Ugh. Sometimes glamoured people are just so boring, Samuel said with a wistful sigh. They are definitely not ones to converse with, but you're all that I've got now that the insufferable Luann walked out on me. Not that it was the first time she walked out. We've been together for over a century. Believe me, she has walked out on me plenty. She has just never stayed gone quite this long, which I suppose is good for you. Luann was never much for willpower. She wouldn't have cared for you as I have. She wouldn't have understood the importance of you. No, she would have seen you as another plaything, a toy, and nothing more. There is nothing deep to that woman, I tell you. If she had come home while you were here, she would have taken your life in glorious and brutal fashion, and truthfully, I would have been saddened by that. Are you not even grateful? You stare at me so blankly. You are alive because I allow you to live. In that sense, I am like your God that so many of you humans blindly worship. I give you life, and in exchange you follow me and do as I command. It's quite beautiful, really. When Mirror said nothing and continued to stare blankly forward, his weak heart beating quietly in the background, Samuel roared, "Answer me when I speak to you!"
I am listening, waiting for you to tell me when you are finished, Master. I don't want to interrupt again. Interrupting makes you angry.
Samuel laughed. He recalled the other day when the Mirror spoke out of turn. Samuel had given him quite the thrashing. He made sure to leave the Mirror of Flesh's eyes and hands intact so he could maintain his purpose and not become as useless as the Mirror of Glass. But the painter was left huddled in a heap of contusions blotting his thin flesh, broken ribs jutting through his elastic skin. Samuel had smiled when he looked down upon the unmoving human who continued to stare endlessly forward because tears glistened in the corners of his wide-open eyes and fell in slow streams down his beaten face. He didn't utter a sound, though, not a single one. Those 2 tears, one from each eye, were the only sign of his true emotion, the pain Samuel had caused him, and the Immortal found it entirely satisfying. You're right, Mirror. I had digressed. I was originally talking about you and your purpose. I should not have even thought about that horrible Luann, never mind brought her into the conversation. Jesus, look at you, Mirror. You don't have to respond to react. You don't even change your facial expression. It's really terribly pathetic. Awful. Simply awful. Sometimes I think you are less alive than the glass mirror I disposed of. That's a sad concept, isn't it? I'm sorry. Mirror spoke without ever moving or changing expression, even still. Forget it. I'm getting sidetracked again. It seems I'm just emotional today, Samuel told him. But that brings me back to my point, Mirror. I've changed my appearance again and again and had your eyes and hands create my reflection each and every time. Your skill never wavered. That is for certain. Yet it still becomes less and less fulfilling. The answer to my problem became less and less the answer to my problem. Now I feel as empty, sad, and plagued as I had when I first hired you, and that is troublesome, dear Mirror. I'm sorry, the motionless, expressionless Mirror said again, though the single tears appeared at the corners of his sunken brown eyes once more. Well, I mean, the art helped. It definitely did. I was completely lost before you answered that email and showed up at my door. Your paintings and such told me what I looked like. It masterfully did what the mirror never was able to, and it put a face to the body I saw each day in the shower. I became a person finally, a reality, Something more than an idea with a voice. Something more than simply floating appendages that did what I willed them to do. No different than you do now. There is nothing alive about you. There was nothing aliver about me before you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to say something. Will you please let me finish? You said you didn't want to interrupt. Please don't make me beat you again. Yes, Master. Samuel took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Your art showed me what Luann saw every day she was here, what her eyes took in when she was with me, but even still, it nagged at me that none of it told me who I really was. Do you know what I mean? Silence. Samuel smiled. Good, don't actually answer that. It's rhetorical. It's just that even the most skillfully detailed of fabulous paintings, which yours definitely are, Mirror, are in the end still just paintings. The eyes on the canvases are beautiful and brightly colored, but they are also empty and flat. And then I think, that isn't me. That's Luann. That's how we got here in the first place, because I am deep and sensitive, and I think. I, unlike her, feel things, you know? I may not have ever seen my reflection, Mirror, but I knew that much about myself. I always knew that much. Yet, in your art, it isn't there. I mean, I suppose I look thoughtful in some pieces, but it still doesn't resonate. I cannot see my soul reflected on even the most beautiful matte canvas. I have been trying, but it is as impossible as finding myself in the mirror. I need more. I need to understand the person behind those eyes that you have so skillfully painted. I need to see and to know the truth of who he is, who I am. I want to know the man, what he's actually like on the inside. Do you understand? Answer this time. Yes. Okay, good. I'm going to ask you to try something new, to do something a little different with your brush this time. Hear me out. Well, I suppose you have no choice, really. You are forced to listen and to comply whether you like it or not. That's our dynamic. Correct. Jesus, you are terrible at knowing when and when not to respond, Mirror. It is a miracle that I haven't killed you by now. I'm sorry, Master. Just hush. This is important. Listen to what I tell you because I need you to do it and do it correctly. Yes, Master. Sometimes you are as insufferable as Luann. Do not apologize. I will likely vomit if I hear your apology again. Moving on. I want you to create another piece, but not with the acute attention to detail you normally use. I want you to look deeper, to not replicate what is on the surface, but to actually recreate my soul, or at least an artistic representation of it. I want you to know. I need you to not simply look at me, but rather look in me, and then paint what is there. Show me what hides behind my exquisite blue eyes, what lies underneath my flawless white skin. Show me the truth of who I am, Mirror. Paint me. Okay. Show me how you really see me, Samuel said. Entertain me. Show me what even my reflection could not. I will. Good. You may just hold on to your emotionless existence a little longer. Not 2 hours later, Samuel stood and moved to look at the mirror's finished painting after the artist robotically put down his brush and loudly pushed his chair back away from the easel. Samuel took in the image on the canvas and he snarled, low and guttural. He turned to glare at the mirror, but the mirror in turn only stared blankly forward. What is this? Did you not hear what I asked you to do? What have you created here? I don't understand. You are still glamored. You should not have done this. You should have been forced to do as I commanded you, yet you failed somehow. You have created this terrible thing that sits before you. What is the meaning of this? Samuel asked, panic lacing in with the anger that spilled from him, the two emotions winding over each other like the fingers of two lovers' hands intertwining. I demand to know, Mirror. Tell me now. Is this some kind of sick joke? What have you done? Explain yourself. Explain yourself this instant. I command you to. Silence. The young man and his weakly beating heart just stared forward, eyes unseeing. I demand you explain this painting to me, Mira. This picture is hideous. It is truly disgusting. It is all blues and mottled grays. This is not art. It is a bruise, and one that has not been tended to or cleaned. It is filthy and dark and sickening to view. The eyes, my eyes, are dark, sickening red like stale blood that is no longer safe to consume, and the mouth is full of sharp, jagged teeth like razors that barely fit next to each other. They overlap and jut out like they are biting for control. Thick, dark blood that spilled over like an overfilled wine glass runs down what should be my pristine ivory chin, but is more a thickening translucent, showing the veins and arteries that scrawl beneath like warring serpents. The blood is streaming down my neck and making me look a mess, uncouth, uncivilized. It is gluttonous and vile, tactless and repugnant. I am a man of class, Mirror. There is a black heart coated in thorny barbs, swirling in a twister-like cloud of darkness buried in my chest cavity. How could this possibly be what you see in me? I was expecting adoration. This is anything but. Explain, now. If you don't, I will kill you and be done with you forever. Speak.
Yes, master, Mirror said then, his head turned slowly to face his master, his brown eyes looking into Samuel's own. Those lone tears glistened as he spoke, though his voice remained as monotonous as always. It is a monster, master. It is you. You are a monster. You bent my will, enslaved me, forced me to abandon my life and my family, my wife and children who remain at home without me to love and care for them, just for me to follow you around this horrible apartment, endlessly painting and living as your mirror. You forced me to leave my children fatherless in order to support your narcissistic vanity. This is your truth, who you are beneath the painting. You are filth, evil. You are darkness incarnate. See yourself clearly for the first time.
Samuel roared with unbridled fury. He lashed out with lightning speed and slashed the man's throat with a single elongated fingernail. When the empty-eyed artist collapsed to the carpeted floor, Samuel shed his bathrobe and pounced nakedly upon him. He drank wildly of the blood pouring forth from his mirror's open throat. He slipped and rolled in it, spread it on his flesh, becoming the painter for a change. He used his long nails and pale fingers to run streaks over the dead man as the rest of his life source, his truest paint, worked on its own to coat the carpet and the surrounding furniture in varying shades of crimson. Allow me to soak my fingers in this red substance and with hard strokes spray these lying walls and this useless goddamned mirror. It is to be the artist's final masterpiece, to become the paint that spoils and ruins so much previous work, that renders your art as useless and worthless as you are. It is a fitting way to explain what bringing you here was like, to capture the boiling blood within my veins and the betrayal in my heart. Samuel, naked and coated in streaks of red, bounded to his feet. He scooped handfuls of blood from the unseeing mirror's empty throat, and he hurried through the apartment, slashing streaks over each and every canvas, each piece of paper, each pointless piece of terrible, useless art. He went back for more blood, over and over, until his project was complete and everything had been painted by him and only him. When the deed was finished, so was the apartment, it seemed, but it meant nothing. None of it means anything. He panted as he sat in the remaining stickiness that pooled below his broken mirror and pleasured himself. I know that I can get new things, better things even. Money has never been an obstacle. I can compel anyone into doing what I require of them. I can glamour them just as I did you. They will simply give me whatever I desire, but none of them could give me what I've needed the most: purpose. They would fail me, just as you have, simply serving to satiate a temporary craving, subside hunger momentarily. At least your art had graced me with the gift of truth, even if it cost you your miserably insignificant life. It is, in fact, something for me to reflect upon in the coming days. So for that, mirror, I thank you. When Samuel was done with himself, he wiped his hand on the mirror's dead face and leaned over to kiss his forehead. The lack of reflection wasn't a curse. Samuel spoke when he realized. Maybe this is what Luann was trying to tell me, and she was deeper than I had credited her for. The lack of reflection is a defense against our own nature, a way to try to forget what we really are, which it seems the others, like Luann, have managed to do. I remember who I am now, though, don't I, Mirror? Now that your art has so kindly enlightened me and I repaid you in kind, I am an abomination, a murderer, a beast. I couldn't decipher who I was all this time, because I wasn't a who at all. I was a what? As you so aptly said, I am a monster. That is one hell of an epiphany, Mirror. Not an easy pill to swallow, so to say. I needed something to wash it down, and I chose you. I hope you understand. Samuel gave a humorless laugh. You were already dead to your wife and children anyway. Samuel crawled through the sticky filth of bodily fluids until he reached his bathrobe. He dug into the pocket and retrieved his phone, sticky with coagulating crimson, and he wiped it across the screen until he could see enough to call Luann, leaving red fingerprints on the already filthy screen. It's been an entire year, Luann said when she answered. What do you want, Samuel? You were right, he told her. I was just having a moment. Come home. Luann sighed. Finally. Let's move again, and we won't take the mirror with us this time. It's already gone, he told her. Samuel glanced over at the mirror's body huddled on the floor nearby. Good, she said. I'll be home in an hour. Pack your things. Samuel closed his eyes and sighed. They're just things, he said, before hanging up the phone and dropping it onto the blood-soaked carpet.
You like the office now. Ever since Gina left you, work has been a sanctuary. Yeah, a little hiding place. The coffee mug wasn't a gift from your grandmother. The bathroom didn't smell like potpourri and fruit-infused shampoo. It's just you, a desk, your research, and the halls. It is the first day of the winter break. 3 uninterrupted weeks where the campus is deserted except for a skeleton crew of maintenance workers and administrators way off on the northern edge of the campus. Yeah. Walking into your building, a bag of groceries in one hand and a messenger bag hanging from your shoulder, you're relieved to find it empty. The back entrance, which opens directly to a stairwell and hall, is dark until you take a step inside. The motion sensors pick up your movements and turn on the lights. They flicker and hum, but eventually stay bright. Upstairs, the hall is dark until you walk into it. Like the first floor, sensors caught your movement and light your way. The hall is long, most of the wooden doors windowless with notes from desperate students taped to them. Your office in the main suite isn't far into it, which you like. The entirety of your happiness begins at the back entrance, inhabits your empty office, and ends with the communal bathrooms only a few yards away. You've learned from experience that before long, the lights at the end of the hall would sense no movement and turn off, leaving only half the hallway lit. At first you found it unsettling, but it grew on you, let you focus on what you needed to do. The door to the office suite is thankfully locked. Inside, the cold tingles on your cheeks and you smile a little bit because it means no one is there. You take the groceries, some convenience store ham, cheese, mayo, and a loaf of bread, and go to the break room. You place the groceries next to the quart of milk already in there and make coffee. Normally you don't drink the crystallized stuff. You're more French roast than coffee by the tub, as Gina used to say. She loved your taste in coffee, and when she left, the smell of gourmet coffee sent you on a binge of self-loathing that almost got you fired. While the coffee maker drips, you close your eyes and take in big sniffs of coffee, and you're not exactly happy that you don't feel queasy at the smell. It's more like satisfaction that you survived for another day. The coffee is bitter, and from the smell, the remainder of the milk went bad. The sugar doesn't help, but you drink it anyway. At your desk, you slip off your shoes and work in your socks. The research you're doing is half-hearted and overcomplicated, but you do it because it forces you to read a bunch of books written by a man who only wrote novels through the perspectives of asexual trees, and not once has it mentioned lovers or wives or anything that reminds you of Gina or the divorce. The few pages you've written are shit, and you know it. There wouldn't be a committee in North America that would publish it, even with your semi-famous name. Still, the man was prolific and time-consuming. You drink your coffee and read. You turn on the computer and open a blank document meant for interest about the man's novel, A Birch at the Edge of the World. But it's still blank even after 3 hours. The urge to piss gets you out of your cubicle and out into the hall. Except for the lights in the front of your suite and the bathroom nearby, the hall's dark once more. Before you cross the hall, you look into the dark until you can somewhat make out the shapes of the doors. For a second, knowing you're alone, you want to scream. Not words, but just let all the pleas and curses and whimpers all compress into one giant bark that you'll vomit out into the dark. Yeah. Instead, you go into the bathroom and piss sitting down, turning the blue water a sickly yellow-green. You sit there longer than you have to, and the motion-triggered lights turn off after a while. You sigh, pull up your pants, and step out of the stall. The lights come back on, and you're confronted with your own face in the mirror. It makes you wonder where all the years went, and then you remember that Gina took them along with the cat, which you didn't like anyway. You were a young man when you met her, and spent the better part of a decade courting her, and now she was gone. The faucet water is cold, and it snaps you out of your momentary trance. You dry your hands with the hand dryer on the wall. The noise and the warmth feel good against your skin. Even when your hands are dry, you hit the button once more and cup your hands as if you were trying to catch the air. You go back out into the hall, the heat slowly fading from your hands, and something at the end of the hall catches your eye. The light at the end of the hall is on. Between you and it is at least 20 yards of darkness. At first, you think that one of the maintenance crew went into the storage room there and used the stairwell on the other side of the building. The door to the supply room has no window, so there will be no way to see anyone in there. But you stand there and wait for something to happen. You step back a little and open the bathroom door, putting yourself inside a bit. You figure that catching someone as they walk out of a bathroom is preferable to catching a lone professor standing in the hall waiting for you. As it is, you know the office rumor mill is in full swing. Ever since the months leading to your divorce, you've caught your colleagues whispering that you aren't well, that the stress has made you subpar. You don't realize how long you fixated on the idea of your colleagues, and the light at the end of the hall goes out, resting until it senses some movement. You step out into the hall and let the door ease shut behind you. You wonder what a maintenance worker could be doing in a cramped closet for so long, and so quietly. Usually the radios on their belts clicked and scratched endlessly. The fact that there was no light visible from under the door strikes you as odd and somehow unnerving. Something had to trigger the light, but there would be no real way to trigger it, and only it, without more lights being turned on. Thinking of this makes you feel uneasy. The dark and the door hidden in it. You've seen it before on nights where you stay so late the only one goes around are policemen and the glowing lights of the library, which is open all night. Once on your way to class, you even saw what was inside the closet. A spare pushcart, shelves of toilet paper and cleaners, and a plain cement floor with a drain in the center. You picture those things as though cataloging their commonness will make you feel better. But if anything, it makes you fixate on the drain. In your mind, it grows from the size of a CD to the size of a manhole cover, and then to the size of one of those cartoon bank vaults, with doors that roll open or closed. The holes, too. They get bigger until not only drops of liquid could go through it, but a man. You get closer to the drain in your head, but the dark there is too thick to see through. You peek further and still see nothing but the dark, except you get the sudden feeling that you're not alone in that drain pipe. Yeah, there isn't a sound, not a whisper nor a breath, but you know that something is there. As quickly as you left it, you're back in the hall, standing in the only patch of light. You haven't moved, but your body feels like it's walked a very long way. You decide that all of it, the feeling and fatigue, could be banished with a sandwich. At your office door, you give the dark hall one last look before going and making yourself a plain ham sandwich. You've had so many of them now that they don't taste like nothing anymore. This doesn't bother you. The alternative is ordering from all the places Gina liked. She was a lousy cook, and so are you. Sitting alone in the break room, you eat because your body doesn't want to die. That's all. By the time you get back to your desk, it's past 2, but it's all kinds of meaningless. With the office empty, you'll stay well past 10 and drive home to shower and sleep. Lately, you haven't even turned on the lights when you get there. You navigate by memory. Memory of the way it was before Gina took the love seat and bar stools. Yeah, you shower in the dark until the hot water turns cold, and even then you stay in it so long you tremble all night. At least the office has books, which you've read or authored, and solitaire, which you are terrible at now. Still, after the books make your eyes hurt, and you broke down and cracked the window to smoke, you play solitaire over and over again. The losses mean very little to you. You expect them, and the victories, though seldom, mean more to you than you think they should. In the middle of one such moment, the cards bouncing all over the screen with blasts of confetti and fireworks, you cry. You don't try to reason with it, you just cry. Once you're sufficiently tired, fortified for that long night ahead only by another ham sandwich, you save your work and turn off your computer. You collect your things and go to the door. Handle in hand, you hesitate for a second, thinking about the light at the end of the hall. But you tell yourself it's just a faulty bulb. You open the door and the light is off. This makes you smile, looking at it as proof that all those weird feelings were nothing but nerves from the divorce. Yeah, all those thoughts of the drain and what was in it were nothing but the aches of a brain under too much stress. You look at the dock and want to laugh at yourself, and you would if you didn't find the whole thing sad. Then something moves within it, or so you think. The sight or thought of it gives you pause, and for a long time, you'll search in the dark for some proof of anything, any explanation. The dark gives you nothing. A part of you fears that. Another tells you to step forward. But the second part sounds like Gina when she was in one of her moods. It's telling you that a real man would step right to it without hesitation. A real man wouldn't even think to be afraid of nothing. It takes you a second, but you do. The first few steps have you in the semi-darkness, but with the next, the automatic lights go on, You illuminate the next 2 segments evenly, not boldly, but without stopping. The end of the hall is becoming clearer, the door frame a little more visible. It unnerves you that you can't see more of it, like the dark around it is made of thicker stuff than what occupied the rest of the hall. The thought gets so big that you can't move anymore. You don't want to get closer, but you want to know, need to know. You fish a nickel out of your pocket and toss it at the end of the hall, hoping it'll be enough to trigger the lights. The sound the heavy coin makes in the hall shocks you, but the sensors picked it up and the fluorescent lights click on. At the end of the hall there is a door with no window and the words "Maintenance, Employees Only" stenciled onto it. Seeing it makes you breathe easier. It makes turning your back to it bearable, though when you do, you still feel a little nervous doing so. That unease follows you down the stairs and into your car, leaving only when the radio comes on, and it's Gina's favorite song. In the morning you wake up tired from bouts of vivid dreams. Their strangeness follows you all morning. You felt in your dreams that you were awake. Your sheets and shorts were not there, but there was nothing to see. All there was a bubble of darkness all around you. You couldn't move. It felt, you recall, like you were not alone, as if something inside the dark were looking at you, sizing you up. Before long, you knew somehow that the other thing in the dark was responsible for it all. The paralysis, the blindness. It senses your knowledge and gets closer, moving through the impenetrable dark as though it were water. You know it is only inches away, and then a sound fills your mind. A clicky hum of fluorescence. In that instant, you are both comforted and horrified that a light is going to turn on. You woke up never knowing what it was, but you feel it somehow in all the shadows of the house, in the dark spots of the city on the way to the office. With that feeling so intense, you park your car a block away so you don't have to brave the parking garage. At the stairwell door, you find you're the only one there again, the fluorescence clicking on just for you. The sound triggers something in you, the same dread as the dream, and it makes you jump a little. That embarrasses you, and you walk the rest of the way in shame. Somehow, the stairs feel like they're longer. On the second floor, the hall is dark until you enter, and as they do every morning, the lights rush on in a wave of illumination. But this time, the light at the end of the hall stays off. This stops you, and for a second, you think of the dream and the drain, and it strikes you that maybe the light stayed off because something wanted it to. You stare at it until you get the idea that the dark is looking right back at you. You lock the office door behind you and turn on all the lights, banishing any shadows there. It gives you a small sense of ease, enough at least to make coffee and dry toast. It's not long before the tingles of fear come back. At your desk, thoroughly making notations in cadence of cedars, it strikes you that there are no windows on the door, and that the hall is carpeted. Momentarily, you're not sure what these facts mean, except that you think the meaning spells some sort of danger. Slowly, you understand that anyone or anything could walk up and down the hall unheard. For all you know, whatever thing hounding you from all the dark places was right outside the door, waiting. The thought pulls you from your desk and takes you to the door. You get down on all fours, nearly putting your cheek on the carpet, and try to look under the door. There's nothing there that you can see, but the thought won't leave you. There is something out there, and you know it. The rest of the day, you're a prisoner in your office suite. At first, you stopped drinking coffee so you wouldn't need to urinate, which only makes the urge come rushing in harder. You try to fight it, hoping to wheel it away. Survival trumps the body's baser needs. You break down finally and piss in the break room sink with the water running. The act partially disgusts you, and yet still fills you with a sense of pride at your decisiveness. A single sandwich is all you allow yourself since there was no place in the office to defecate. By 8, you've peed in the sink 3 times and feel lightheaded from hunger. There is a small leather couch beside the department chair's door. You lie on it as best you can to close your eyes a moment and conserve energy. Thankfully, the couch is too uncomfortable to sleep deeply, and the dreams won't be able to find you, not like last night. After a few minutes, you aren't awake anymore. You're hovering in the haze between sleep and consciousness. In that state, you fixed your restless mind focused on the office doorknob. The layout of the suite affords you a view of it, and from behind your fluttering eyelids, you can't help but stare at it, half expecting it to move. You try to rouse yourself awake when that fear wells up, but once you see that it's still, your eyes close and all you think in that millisecond before temporary oblivion is, what if it turns now? And your eyes shoot open again, repeating the cycle for hours. You get up feeling like hell. Your lower back is tight, and your intestines feel like they've been tied into a slip knot. You blink the fog of sleep away and stand, the motion nearly knocking you back on your seat. You walk up to the break room enough to look out the window. It's dark. The lamppost bright. You find the clock and see that it's well past 2 in the morning. Still groggy, the shock of the time makes you want to collect your things and go home. You push the feeling aside and sit down again. There is something outside the door, waiting for you. The thought keeps repeating itself until you get hungry again. You make and eat your sandwich mechanically. You wash it down with tap water. Even in the break room, you stare at the wall as though you can see through it to the office door. You keep your eyes trained that way as you walk out of the break room. By force of habit, you turn off the lights but quickly turn them on again. You don't want the dark anywhere in the suite. It makes you feel better that the dark had been banished from the suite. You don't get far before you think about all the empty offices. Sure, you work in a cubicle, but there are 6 office doors locked and windowless, all of them enriched by the dark. Your mind fills with images of the pregnant dark behind those doors, and wonder about this shadow feeling that's nagged you all day. You consider the idea that the shadow could move through the dark, the same as you would a door, which terrifies you, but explains how it could be everywhere. But a second thought, a worse one, washes over you and leaves you stunned. What if there's more than one shadow, you ask? What if the dark spots are like snake holes, to each a creature, an entity, all of them different in temperament and proportion, united only in their want of you? That thought has its way with the suite, the reassuring silence turning ominous and foreboding. Yeah, you backpedal, eyes trained on the doors, more specifically their knobs. Groping with clammy hands, you find the break room and slip into it. Your panic doubles when you find nothing there to help you. The knives are all for butter, and there's not a fork to be found. At last, you settle on your director's coffee mug, a big pretentious cup covered in Rembrandt's The Night's Watch in miniature. Satisfied, you grasp the handle and smash it in the sink. The crash reminds you of how silent the building is. Now your fist is clasping only a handle and the sharp remains of the cup. You touch the broken edges with your finger, testing its sharpness. At first, it doesn't satisfy you at all, until you slice your finger open. The pain comes and goes in a flash, and your finger is in your mouth. You walk out into the suite, arm cocked and ready to punch. You see and hear nothing. It fills you with the dread and drenches you in sweat. You keep expecting the doors to open and to unleash whatever shadow is hidden there. The strategy, you think, is to find the door that would open and be there ready. But then you think, perhaps they're all working in concert. That one door will prompt another and another. That if you were to strike at one, 3 more would descend upon you. Slowly, you back away from the main space, inching toward the door. Your eyes move from one door to the next with such haste you feel dizzy. As you touch the doorknob, you clench your fist together around the broken cup and turn around. You know something is out there, waiting. It wants you to come out and meet it. For a long time, you do nothing. You turn the knob, expecting something to rush in at the sound of the turning and unlocking. You open the door fast and punch out with the broken cup. Your eyes are closed, but you still expect to feel an impact, except all you hit is air. Thrown off balance, you open your eyes to regain your feet and see that there's nothing in the hall but you. The quick motion spooked the lights back on, but as before, the last light remained off. The sight nearly drives you back into the office, but something stops you. A voice. Not one around you, but from within. Yeah, it's Gina's voice, a sentence she uttered a few years into her marriage. She'd been talking to her cousin, unaware you were home, and said,
"No, he doesn't hit me or treat me bad. It's just, he's a pussy."
The memory enrages you. That day, you'd gone back to the front door and opened and closed it loudly. That day, she'd been right. Now she was wrong. Broken cup in hand, you marched down the hall, telling yourself not to look, not to think about all the other doors or all the shadows. You stay focused on the end of the hall and the dark there. The closer you come to it, the more you wait for some shape to materialize, some creature to form. But all there is a plain door that reads maintenance, employees only. Testing it, you put your fist and cup into the dark and find only air, no different than the other end of the hall. You move your arm back and forth slowly. The light flashes on, sending you back a step. All the lights are on, and you are alone. But you don't feel at ease. Not yet. The door is solid, and the dark drain sits inside it. Hand still bleeding, you reach out for the door handle and touch it. The fact that it feels solid and cold does nothing to calm you. Lifting your cup, you grab the knob and find it unlocked. You close your eyes against a rush of images, crude nightmares dancing in your skull, and swing the door open, not knowing what stands there waiting for you and from where it came. You find inside that room that all was as you imagined it to be. Your scream cuts through the empty building, where it dies, alone.
Part 1. Technician 1. How's it going? Technician 2. Can't complain. Technician 1. Another day in paradise, huh? Technician 2. Another day, another dollar. Technician 1. What are you gonna do, right? And so on. It's enough to make you vomit. And coming from a guy with a job as utterly disgusting as mine, those are strong words. For all the useless things I learned in school, geometry, chemistry, trig 2, chemistry 2, etc., they never taught me what I really needed to know. Why? Because the world was our oyster. Truth is, there are 2 ways an average guy can make a living wage these days. To do a job other people can't do, because their papers don't say they're qualified to do it, or a job other people don't want to do. The can't-dos are for the college grads with the insight to enter the fields that fit the jobs of the age. The don't-wanna-dos are guys like me, guys who thought their studies would give worth to their futures, rather than their futures giving worth to their studies. Guys who expected great big pearls to fall out of that proverbial oyster and land in their laps. So, here I am, a college graduate, listening to this prattle, the Dullards' morning mantra. What are you gonna do indeed? Me? I'm 35 years old, a veteran of decent paying don't-wanna-do jobs. At some point I found myself providing for a wife and 4-year-old twin girls. It all snuck up on me like a terminal illness. The wife lost all respect for me long ago. The girls are too young to lose respect for me yet, but they'll learn to in time. Your efforts to be a provider may initially entitle you to some appreciation, but this rule is written in water. Observe, youngsters, there are no oysters. There are no pearls. Or, as Oscar Wilde might have told you, the world was your oyster, young millennials. But you used the wrong fork. My partner, Fernando, is another one of us don't-wanna-dos, but he happens to be an exceptional one. I spend a great deal of my day with the guy. He's a character, always smiling and shaking his head the way he does, as though the more absurd it all gets, the more amused he is. The accent is good too, the kind of unabashed Spanish accent where R's are rolling all over the place. Really, you gotta like the guy. 44 years in the books, still fighting to be good-natured, he still cares about stuff. The quality of his work, his family, getting home for what he calls Love Night on Wednesdays. Love Night is sacred to Fernando. I respect it, but I can't relate to it. For a lowly tech like myself, Fernando does some inspired work. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry, etc. That was Martin Luther King Jr. talking about my partner, Fernando. Yes, I know, Fernando, me and my quotes. Now that I'm a street sweeper myself, I like that one a whole lot less than I used to. Still, I'm lucky to work under the tutelage of the great Fernando. Stand on the shoulders of giants. Isn't that what they say? Once we get out of the building and onto the road, we have an all right time together. That's really all you can hope for, to have an all right time. What are you gonna do, you ask? Here's the answer. Follow the 43 methods, have an all right time, and go fart in your lunch pail. It's the middle of May. There's a haze of pollen on the windshield where the wipers can't reach. That constant itch in the crooks of your eyes, right in the armpits of your eyes, and that faint feeling in the back of your throat like you're getting sick all the time. Springtime in New Jersey is the drizzling shits. Fernando, chipper as always, seems to be immune to the pollen. Maybe it's that little mustache of his that filters it out. So, we're on the turnpike, 9:20 in the morning. So, your mom is Jewish, or your dad is Jewish? Asked Fernando. His little mustache is crooked again this morning. He always manages to shave one side a little shorter than the other, just enough so I end up staring at it with mild irritation over lunch. For a guy so detail-oriented, his mustache maintenance is haphazard. My mom is Jewish, I say. Was Jewish. Your mom was Jewish, so that means you're Jewish. That's what they say. You do not look Jewish. He glanced over to confirm his suspicion. Eyes on the road, Fern. And you're right, I don't look Jewish. I've got that going for me. Why is that?
what the Jews look like.
You just said I don't look like a Jew, so you must have some frame of reference.
Big nose, afro hair, stuff like that, right? Hairy.
That sounds like you, Fern. Fernando looks down at his hairy arms.
My God, I am the Costa Rican Jew.
The GPS says to take Pembroke Avenue. Fernando taps at the screen. It's been a while since we were down this way. So, what are we doing in this shitty truck? I ask.
Going to work, man.
Very funny. I mean, what are a couple of Jewish boys doing driving around in a shitty truck without air conditioning? We're supposed to have those suit and tie jobs, aren't we?
Someone's got to do the real work, bro.
He billows the heat from his shirt. The only thing separating you from the heat of the engine in these trunks is a plate of aluminum, which gets to approximately the temperature of the sun. The heat from the diamond plate flooring goes right through your boots. Some mystery bolt tinks from the undercarriage and spins in the wheel well and rolls down Pembroke Avenue. I hear it all the time. One day, some important bolt will fall off and we'll go rolling down the road ourselves.
So, how's the family?
Asks Fernando.
The family?
Fine, I guess. Kids are fine.
That's good, man.
Yeah, kids are fine.
How old are they again? 4?
Just turned 4.
Man, time flies, bro.
No kidding.
How about you and the missus?
Asks Fernando.
Who knows? You gotta stay good with her, bro. Gotta work at it. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but come on already. I give her all my money. Isn't that enough?
Nah, bro. You gotta give it to her. You gotta give it to her, man.
He does his best humping gesture from a driving position.
Give it to her.
Well, she doesn't want it. Trust me.
Man.
He shakes his head. We've been through this a million times, at least every Wednesday. The guy just isn't ready to give up on me. The engine backfires and another mystery screw tinks in the undercarriage. A Hispanic guy watches from the curb. I meet eyes with him in the mirror. Then he's gone. Fernando mercifully changes the subject.
Hey, do you know they're bothering me to get new uniforms again?
The pleats in my polyester work pants are still crisp. Fern's are worn paper thin, several shades lighter red than mine, save for the faint stains the original color was intended to hide. It takes a lot of washes to get these heavy-duty work clothes worn comfortably thin, and he turned away every uniform requisition form for nearly a decade.
Haven't they for years?
Yeah, they never learn, bro.
Look at this, man. Look how thin it is.
He pinches his sleeve between thumb and forefinger. You can see the light through it.
Yeah, I know, you've showed me. Gotta stay comfortable, man. I dry clean these. If I put them in the washer, I'm afraid they'll fall apart.
You dry clean them?
Yeah, man. Isabella thinks I'm crazy.
I think she's got a point. Fernando chuckles.
That's messed up, man. You're supposed to be on my side here.
He slaps my thigh.
Didn't feel it,
I say. My pants are too thick.
You see that, man? I told you. Your ball's gonna be sweating.
Observe, youngsters. That's what I took away from my college education. Sweaty balls. The GPS says to stay right at the fork. In another mile, we'll make a left on 13th Street. In another 5 miles is North Avenue, then Maple Street. That's where the job is. Fernando glances over.
So, you gonna lead this one?
I look at him mid-yawn. Suddenly, I'm not so tired.
The lead?
You mean, I wasn't planning to.
Gotta do it sometime, you know?
I considered it a moment. A million scenarios run through my mind, all bad ones. Why don't we have a look first? We don't need to decide now.
Man, what a rookie.
Big, small, same thing. You know that.
Yeah, so they say.
But this is veteran thinking, that size isn't a factor. I tend to think if you haven't quite mastered the finesse that only comes with years of experience, you're probably better off learning in more forgiving conditions. This is greeny stuff, admittedly, but after 8 months, I'm still pretty green. And come on, I'm not supposed to be a technician. I'm supposed to be a novelist, or professor, something like that.
You know how it is, I say. Let's not play make-pretend idealism. Yeah, I know. All right, we'll check it out first. I'm yet to lead a job. The first guy I partnered up with was a 17-year vet who'd since retired. That was an easy one, though. An old lady whose alarm didn't work. All we needed was a wire. The next was with Fernando, also a disabled alarm. And all we needed was a screwdriver. Still, I'd been nervous. It takes time to make all the methods second nature, and this is critical for the split-second decisions needed to improvise on the go. It's a principle of the job. Methodology, principle number 3. Improvisation in unexpected conditions. Making quick decisions and executing them correctly depends a lot on these details. Same as a painter would tape carefully over woodwork, or a carpenter would measure twice before cutting a board. Fernando's experience is most obvious in the job's subtleties, including his own finicky little preferences. His insistence on a soft, worn-out uniform shirt and thin-soled sneakers. Steel-toed boots were the industry standard, but you can't feel your feet on the ground, he'd explained to me. Important for leverage and control. He even takes the insoles out of his shoes. Fernando isn't exactly a physical specimen. He relies heavily on technique, also a principle of the job. The first, in fact. Methodology principle number 1. Technique first. Also commonly described, technique, technique, technique. We pull up to 5664 Maple Street at 10:05 a.m. All right, so what do we have here? Asks Fernando. He hadn't even glanced at the work order. With experience, the techs become comfortable enough to walk into a job cold, confident they can handle whatever it is. They constantly drill it into our brains to always be prepared, but veteran guys like Fern seem to rely more on their instincts. I typically won't give him any info besides the address until we get there, and he decides our approach on the spot. Flustered as always, I fumble through the itinerary to find some specifics. All right. Here it is, Harold Chapman, 5664 Maple Street. Says he's expecting the carpet cleaners. Big wine stain in the living room. Shit. We got the carpet cleaners, right? Yeah, man, we're all good. All right. So, that's all I got. Remind me to thank Dispatch for the generous details. He releases his seatbelt. So, what do you think? You want to try it or what? My heart starts going. It always did to some degree, but now it was really going. I don't know, man. Maybe not. I'll back up. Man, you gotta try soon, you know? Yeah, I know, I say. Now isn't the time. There's no description or anything. I know what you're gonna say. Size doesn't matter, but I'd rather know. Okay. You just really pay attention, all right? Gotta learn something new every time. You got it, Fern. All right, man. He checks the mirrors, then opens the door and rolls out. Fern isn't exactly a fat guy, but strangely proportioned, like a big bowling pin. He walks like one, too. A goofy, waddling way about him that might lead you to believe he can't move the way he does. But when he needs to, he can really move. I get out and shut the door and slide open the side door and grab the carpet cleaner. I wonder if the thing even works. The cord is wound tightly around the handle and tucked to the coil like a noose. What are you bringing? I say. Me? Screwdriver. You sure? Shit, man, if I can't fix it with a screwdriver, nobody can fix it. He chuckles his mischievous chuckle. Fernando always pronounces screwdriver with at least 5 syllables. Nervous as I am, I have to grin. I lift the carpet cleaner out and let it clunk onto the pavement. Fernando's work phone rings. He flips it open and puts it to his ear. Yo. He holds up a finger for me to wait, and I lean there on the carpet cleaner. The street is empty. No one in the windows. A few moments later, Fern's head is shaking. Man, you gotta be kidding me. We just got here. I told you shouldn't have sent him out alone. Yeah? We're in the middle of a job right now. Yes? All right. Sure, I'll let you know. All right, bye. He snaps the phone shut and drops it in his pocket. He looks pissed. What is it? Your buddy Alex went out by himself and made a mess. We gotta help post-job. Alex isn't my buddy. That's just how Fernando makes it clear that someone isn't his buddy. He's always your buddy. What happened? I don't know, man. You don't have his number, do you? A message came into dispatch through the system. Alex won't use his phone for work. Nobody has his number. Where is he? Orange Oaks, about 45 minutes. I told her we're in the middle of something. If we stall, maybe she'll send someone else. He sighs. Damn it. Isabella's gonna be pissed if I'm late for love night. Pissed. Fernando had explained to me several times that Wednesday was his and his wife's love night. That's what he calls it anyway. And in case you're wondering, yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Corny as it sounds, there's also something enviable about Fernando's little midweek holiday. My wife doesn't even look at me unless she has to. If it weren't for the kids, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have anything to do with me at all. He flips his famous screwdriver the way he does, the flathead flashing in the sunlight, and tucks it in his belt. He could have been a bartender. All right, let's go. Got the glove? Yeah, I got it. Okay, let's do this fast. Maybe we can hurry up and get back on schedule. I'm always in awe of Fernando's apparent comfort before a job. Never any sign of nerves. The same goofy, wobbly walk, side to side on his thin-soled sneakers. We approach the door. I put the heavy machine down and ring the bell. She always gives me shit when I'm late on Wednesday. I tell her there's nothing I could do about it, but she doesn't care. Then, I gotta hear it. The door opens. There he is. Harold Chapman. Big guy, maybe 6'4", maybe 250 pounds. A big boy. Mr. Chapman, how are you this morning? Says Fernando. Thank you for coming on such short notice. This stain is just an eyesore. He pulls the door all the way open and steps back. Fern grins at me. He knows exactly what I'm thinking, and yes, I'm glad I passed on leading this one. No problem at all. I understand, sir. Mr. Chapman motions for us to come in. Fernando goes in first and I follow, yanking the carpet cleaner over the door sill. Chapman winces, as though I might damage the fine piece of woodwork by doing so. I notice Fernando eyeballing our surroundings as we enter. Methodology principle number 20. Awareness of surroundings. A spill in the living room, right over here. Chapman leads us to the stain, a darker, browner one that I'd expect from wine. Can you believe what that cunt did to my rug? He says. 30-year-old bottle of Chianti. I don't know what I was thinking when I married her. He turned to face us, his cheeks mottled red. So, can you get rid of it? I take my glove out of my pocket and put it on. Chapman watches me queerly for a moment, but returns his look to Fernando. Oh yeah, I can clean it, no problem. And, hey, is that an expensive shirt? All Chapman has on is a white undershirt, but he glances down to check anyway. That's all the time it takes. Fernando plants his heel, pulls the screwdriver and lunges on his right leg. He wields the tool like a fencing sword, and with only the minimum effort necessary, he pushes the screwdriver into Mr. Chapman's eyeball. Methodology principle number 1. Technique, technique, technique. The eyes are the windows to the soul, they say. But to paupers like Fernando, the eyes are just a fast track to the frontal lobe. Mr. Chapman doesn't scream. They never do. It's that short moment of preposterous confusion that allows us to subdue him quietly. The mail-gloved left hand goes over Mr. Chapman's mouth, my left instep on his calf, and my right arm around his neck. The first time I'd attempted this maneuver, I didn't position my foot properly on the calf, and the man came down backwards on top of me. Fortunately, he was half the size of Mr. Chapman here. This time, technique is crucial. Technique, technique, technique. I bend the knee, maintaining my center of gravity, and Fernando scoops out the right leg with his ankle. His arms flail, instinctively reaching to cushion his fall. This is key. We get him down expertly, very gently for a man of Chapman's size, and Fernando straddles him with his knees, pinning the upper arms, and turns his attention to the screwdriver again. There we go. You're okay, bro, he says to Mr. Chapman, as he thumps in the screwdriver with the heel of his hand. He always offers the subjects this kind of consolation. It isn't part of methodology. He's just trying to be pleasant about it. With a good last thump, the screwdriver breaks through the eye socket and sinks to the hilt. Fernando had done it so fast. Chapman hadn't even had time to protest. You see how I'm using the eye socket for leverage, man? I nod. Round and round. You're okay, buddy. Okay, almost done. The stainless steel flathead screwdriver is Fernando's favorite tool, which he grinds and polishes extra sharp at the tip. It's a round-barreled screwdriver, so he can smoothly work the shaft around the circular rim of the eye socket. The edges of a square-barreled screwdriver grind to the bone and tend to shred the eyelids, he'd explained to me, and cause undue blood spillage. Methodology principle number 11. Avoidance of messes before they happen. Fernando churns the brains. Mr. Chapman wiggles his arms and legs, but these are involuntary reflexes, no threat to either of us. Satisfied that the brain is sufficiently disorganized, I remove my glove from over Mr. Chapman's mouth. Methodology principle number 9. Proper safety precautions. It isn't long before all movement stops. Mr. Chapman is quite sufficiently dead. The next step is to ensure we've made no mess, and if we have, to clean it up. Hold that steady, bro. I hold the screwdriver in place while Fernando tilts Mr. Chapman to check if he had urinated. If he had, he'd quickly remove the pants to keep from messing the carpet. If he hadn't, he wasn't going to urinate anytime soon. He obviously hadn't shit his pants. When they do that, it's obvious right away. To Fernando, this is the most distasteful part of the job. Did he make pee-pee? I ask. Nah, looks good. Hold that steady. A lifeless human head is more unwieldy than you'd think, particularly a big one. If I let it go, it will tilt over and spill its liquefied contents onto the rug. I've only made this mistake once, and the result was unpleasant enough to teach me my lesson. Fernando's phone rings again and he gets goofily to his feet. Just hold him steady for a minute, man. Don't spill that. I got it. Fernando frowns at the phone and holds it to his ear like it's something filthy. It's the office again. Yeah, we're post-jobbing the Chapman place. Hey, do you know we have that stakeout later, right? We can't just drive all over New Jersey helping people out, man. He stands listening for a moment. I can hear the dispatcher's cool, reasonable tone in the receiver. Bro, I don't know what your buddy did, but they want us to break off right away and go help him. You mean leave this here? I said, but he was listening to the dispatcher again, with a finger in his other ear. I looked down at the body of Mr. Chapman next to his wine stain. If he'd only known why his wife really spilled that Chianti on the carpet. Soon, she'd have enough money to buy all the old Chianti she wanted. And, at the end of the day, Fern will be able to afford a nice bottle for love night. Me? I'll have plenty for my six-pack. Chapman will have no trouble waiting for us to get back and post-job, but the idea of leaving a body behind on a Tier 1 is highly off the book, the same as an unfinished job, an act of neglect, subject to discipline, even discharge. Fernando is pacing through the living room now. I'm no veteran of PHA, but I've been there long enough to know what this conversation is about without hearing both sides of it. Fernando, the dispatcher, and Alex are all trying to cover their asses. Claire, back at the office, needs us to break off and help Alex immediately, but doesn't want to say it outright, because she'd be advising us to work against Principle 19. Methodology Principle number 19. No job left uncompleted. Fernando knows that, and has no problem disregarding Principle 19 as long as it's by way of the greater Principle 4. Methodology Principle number 4. Work as directed. As far as Alex goes, he's in some serious predicament, and likely at fault for it. He put up a big red flag, but sent it into the system without telling Claire exactly what's wrong. Claire knows this, and stands to be blamed for not handling the situation properly if things go south. Claire also knows that Alex is being quiet because a little help might alleviate the whole situation, and no reports will need to be filed, and nobody will be in trouble. But for all of this to go smoothly, at least one of them has to put their ass on the line, and it's not going to be Fernando. I'll break off, Claire, but only if you tell me to, bro. I'm not going unless you're officially directing me to. So, what do you want me to do? He rolls his eyes at me. My arms are getting tired. Mr. Chapman has a head like a watermelon. I can feel the stew sloshing around in his skull. Thank you. See? Was that hard? Don't worry, I'll leave matches in the mailbox. Yes, yes. Alright, I'll let you know. Okay. Bye. He closes the phone and puts it in his pocket. From his other pocket, he produces a book of matches and kneels down and puts it in Chapman's pocket. He doesn't say anything. I can tell he's annoyed. So much for Principle 19, I say. I know, man. Fernando paces around annoyedly for a moment. Oh, you see how I push with my back foot? From the heel to back foot. You see why I like sneakers? Yeah, I saw. Good. I hold Chapman's head steady while Fern grabs a roll of black tape and a rag, and we pack the rag into his empty eye socket and rip lengths from the roll of tape and paste them over his eyes, sealing it shut. Still, I take 2 brass bookends from a nearby shelf and set each one next to each other. They should keep his head nice and straight until we get back, but the rag and tape will prevent a leak if they don't. Okay, man. Let's go see what's going on with your buddy. He seems to be lightening up already. I'm glad for that. On the way out, Vern drops a matchbook on the front stoop and kicks it over so the PHA letters are visible. Then we get in the truck and punch the address for Alex's job in the GPS and leave. The way things are going so far, Love Night is far from certain. Part 2. We're mostly quiet on the way to Orange Oaks, dreading the mess that awaits us at Alex's job. The adrenaline from the Chapman job had run its course, and now I'm tired again. I've been sleeping terribly lately. Most nights I just pass out on the couch. Ashley watches her shows in the bedroom, and I sit, drinking my beer in the living room. Sometimes I watch TV. Sometimes I read magazines. Last night I just kind of sat there. That's just the way things are right now. Fernando has been rubbing his bald scalp. Take this out, man. Keeping his eyes on the road, he tilts his head to show me a fresh scab on top, about the size of a quarter. Ouch. What happened? Dude, I was hammering some nails sticking up with the floorboards back down, and of course Angelica wants to help me. So I'm down there, and she's helping with his little ball-peen hammer I had from somewhere, and she goes, "Daddy, I'm Handy Manny." Some cartoon she likes. Anyway, the hammer hits me before I can even look up. I see stars. I go down. I don't know how long I was out. I get up and get this. She's watching Handy Manny. You were knocked out? How cold, man. I swear these kids are trying to kill me sometimes. I still have a scar from the paint stripper. I remember that one. I wish I didn't, man. I remember this. He lifts up his pant leg to show the hairless mound of scar tissue, with the broomstick and the spokes. That one knocked me out too, man. Jesus. How many times have you been knocked unconscious? A dozen maybe. But like 10 from the kids. What's the saying? How sharper than a serpent's tooth is to have a thankless child? Fern looks sideways at me. Chew in your quotes, man. English is Fernando's second language. Sometimes it takes him a second to work out a sentence with unusual syntax. Shit, man, says Fern. I don't think they're thankless, I just think they're trying to kill me. The GPS tells us our destination is on the left. As we pull up in front of the house, I see Alex's truck backed into the driveway, the bulkhead door wide open. He must be in there. If he isn't, he's blatantly disregarding Principle 18, an act subject to discipline. Methodology, Principle 18, vehicle security. Fernando parks the truck and they get out and approach the vehicle. I knock gently on the hood and Alex's head pops up in the cargo area. He must have been cooping back there for a while. Not a good sign. He slides the door open and invites us in. Even in the dark of his new uniform clothes, you can see he's soaked in sweat and blood. Jesus, I'm glad to see you guys. There's blood in the whiskers of his chin. He'd been struck in the lip. What's the matter, man? He just kept coming. I couldn't get him down. You didn't butterfinger it, did you? I say. No! He didn't get away. He's dead, but Jesus. Head like a... I don't even know. Alex was exhibiting all the symptoms of what PHA techs call blood fever, a major league freakout after a messy job. This is forgivable. There isn't a technician I know of that is innocent of freakouts. Even Fernando had lost it a few times in his fledgling years. We all have stress-related dreams about work, too. It's something about burning nasty chemical images in the brain with adrenaline as a kind of catalyst. Or, at least that's how it was explained to me. Just shop talk, really. My own dreams are the nervous type. A recurring nightmare of mine is driving all the way back to headquarters and realizing I'd forgotten to pick up a body. Another is that I'd taken a nap and slept right through my lunch break. In these dreams, I'll wake up past sundown with a full barrel in the back and 2 incomplete jobs. The dreams diminish as time goes on, but I still have 1 or 2 a week, and Fernando is never in them. In my nightmares, I'm always alone. Sounds like we got a mess in there, man. God, yeah! You guys have a carpet cleaner, right? Yeah, we got one. Thank Christ. What did you use? Fernando asks him. Alex's silence was telling. After a long moment came the admission. A Louisville Slugger, he says. The customer requested it? Suggests Fern. Occasionally the customer wants to choose the manner of death, and a technician is selected according to their personal preference. Luckily, these kinds of thematic requests are rare. All 3 of us know the truth, that Alex had been careless. Fern is just busting balls. No, I just... Oh, it usually works fine, you know? 1, maybe 2 lumps. Alex is a 3-year guy. Not green, but certainly not beyond a mistake. A baseball bat is a careless and unprofessional way to perform a job, and it's clear he'd gotten too cocky in his limited experience. It's better to be overly careful than cocky and reckless. To use the right tool for the job. That's a principle. Methodology principle number 35. Proper tools for the appropriate applications. This is never a baseball bat. The senior techs say it best. A baseball bat is for baseball. Alex is a known basher, meaning he likes to do his jobs with blunt objects. The advantage of bashing is the decreased need for accuracy, but the drawback is the potential for a big mess. And a bat is a terrible instrument to bash with. Everything from lack of concealability to the extra space it takes to wield it. After this is over, he'll have to seriously rethink his methods. Unless there is no after this. Man, what the hell are you using a bat for? Don't you have a crackjack in there? Yeah, it was dumb, I know, it was. It was just kind... Oh, it's a bad habit. Fernando shakes his head and peeks out the windshield for unwanted attention. Methodology principle number 20. Awareness of surroundings. Nobody anywhere. All right, let's have a look, Fernando says. I'll grab the cleaner, I say. We walk up the stairs to the porch. You can smell the blood before we even get to the screen door. Bro, you gotta be kidding me, says Fernando. He opens the door and I take a deep breath of fresh air before I go in. Inside, it looks like the set of a slasher film. Smears on the tile floor, spatter on the walls, bloody footprints on the carpet beyond the kitchen, both the victims and Alex's. A bloody handprint on the calendar hung on the refrigerator door, as though marking down some special occasion. Alex looks ashamed, like a kid who's just broken a window. Bro, this is amateur shit right here, man. I know it. Out in the dining room, a table is collapsed on splayed legs, a red stucco mess down the middle, broken dishes, a bloody tablecloth bunched up on the floor, glops of aborted matter all over the carpet. A strangeness suddenly comes over me as I realize how much of the man I am seeing before I see the man himself. Sometimes it's these little oddities that leave the biggest impressions on me. At times I find myself thinking, you know, this really is the strangest job. Last week, I took the family to the mall. Ashley and I and the kids were sitting in front of Orange Julius, and I was watching the 2 girls behind the counter make milkshakes and ice cream sundaes for a group of carefree teenagers. The twins were enjoying their ice cream, and I was thinking, what a pleasant job those 2 young ladies have. I pictured that one of those girls marries some old rich guy, maybe a guy with a lot of money and not much else. She has an affair with the young, handsome pool boy. Maybe realizes she made a big mistake marrying the old man after all. But that's all right. She can divorce the guy and make out like a bandit, right? Some long, ugly divorce proceedings later, Fernando and I find her name on our clipboard one morning. Customer requests suffering. Please bash. Picture confirmed. Thanks. There are 43 work methods to follow as a technician of Pale Horse of the Apocalypse, Inc. I kind of added my own unofficial principle number 44. Leave work at work. It's easier said than done, but I do make it a point to try. Fernando says it becomes easier with experience, but I watch those girls pouring strawberry syrup over the ice cream with those dark, wet chunks of strawberries, and no matter how hard I tried not to picture it, all I saw were those clots of gore that end up everywhere when you bash a guy's brains all over the place. Simmons usually does those jobs. He's got these Mark McGuire arms, uses a pipe bender. The real strawberry sundae is in the living room. Back on Maple Street in Turnersville is a job murdered so neatly and professionally it could have been filmed for a PHA instructional video. This one, however, was fit for a gag reel. The scene is reminiscent of the Big Bang itself, a great explosion of organic material. Proper bashing kills have been likened to flipping a steak on a grill. One flip. That's one strike on one side, one on the other side if needed. No more. Unless you've got one of those Simmons jobs where you were supposed to make a great big mess. The man, African American, age indeterminable by his present condition, looks as though Alex had struck him 24 times. One of our little rules, not acknowledged in methodology for the sake of political correctness, is not to bash African Americans. They are thought to have particularly durable heads. PHA does not condone or tolerate racial insensitivity, but after a number of blunders like this in the past, it's practically implied. Just smeared his brother all over the house, man. I know it. Never again with the bat. Bro, you'll be lucky if there is an again. Oh, you don't think they'll fire him, do you? I say. Fernando shakes his head. Dude, we'll do what we can. So I can tell you. That's an honest mistake, man, protests Alex. You honestly broke like 10 work methods, bro. You got matches? Yeah, says Alex and reaches into his pocket. Throw one on the table there. No, you know what? Put one on the mailbox. He stands, hands on his hips, assessing the apocalyptic mess. Put 2 on the mailbox, bro. 2? Alex says. We're gonna be here a while, bro. And if they're gone before we're done, you're putting out another one. I'll do it, I say. Alex sighs but offers no argument. He hands me 2 matchbooks. On the flag in the mailbox, man, says Fernando. If there is one. If not, just make it kind of visible. All right, I say. I walk nonchalantly to the mailbox, checking my surroundings, checking for faces in windows, stopped cars, exhaust plumes, brake lights, etc. Methodology principle number 20, awareness of surroundings. I open the matchbook and put it around the flag and close it so the red PHA is easily visible. It holds there nicely. I can only imagine the feeling a cop would have seeing one of these little red logos. I still get excited at the sight of a $1 bill on the ground, and we technicians make an above-average living. For a cop, it would be like finding a $5,000 bill. Imagine that. Not too bad at all. Methodology principle number 39, discretionary use of matchbooks. I slide open the door and gather all the stuff in the cargo area we might need so I won't have to come out again for more before we're post-jobbed. Methodology principle number 6, the right way the first time. I roll the drum out the back of the vehicle and set it on its wheels and put in all the cleaning stuff and roll it up to the porch. I grab both handles and walk it carefully up the steps, maintaining the natural curve of my spine and establishing firm footing with each step. Methodology principle number 32, proper lifting and lowering guidelines. Inside, the guys had gotten most of the corpse on plastic. Fernando was spraying bloodbuster solutions on the walls and had set Alex to deal with all the particularly icky stuff, notably brains, and he's scratching bits of gore out of the carpet and into properly indicated biohazard bags. Methodology principle number 42. Proper containerization equipment. While Fernando works in the walls, I fire up the carpet cleaner. I hear the clink of bone fragments sucking up the intake and catching on the filter, the sudsy water running pink up the hose, sometimes gushing plain red. It's amazing sometimes to see how much liquid can come out of a person. It's 1:30 by the time we're carrying the full barrel down the porch steps. Alex and I hoist it onto the back of the truck and slide it across the time-smooth diamond plate. Fernando was barking at his wife on the phone in Spanish. "Thanks, guys," says Alex. "That's all right." Fernando flips the phone closed and stuffs it in his pocket. Then he frowns and pulls it back out and dials again. "You have much more to do today?" asks Alex. "One more, in Newton." Fernando is waddling down the driveway, phone at his ear, gesturing with his free hand the way he always does when he's worked up. I figure he's probably trying to get out of the Newton job. "I'm thinking about switching to popping," says Alex. "Fernando teach you how to do it?" "I've only done backup," I say. "But yeah, he's teaching me." Alex is staring at his boots, playing with the gravel. "You practice at home on anything?" "Nah, my wife thinks I'm a warehouse manager. She'd start to wonder if I started stabbing dummy heads in the garage, and she's probably looking for an excuse to get rid of me anyway." "Oh, that's right, I forgot you're married." "Yeah." Alex is one of those single guys you don't know whether to pity or envy for it. Either way, it's easy to hate them. Fernando comes back, the phone closed in his hand. "All right, man. You get to go home early and we get to do more work." "They're bringing me in?" "Yeah, that's what they told me to tell you. Terry said to bring coffee on the way back." Am I in trouble?" "I don't know. Light with cream and a sweet and low." Alex doesn't answer, just walks dejectedly down the driveway, walking it off. I'm rolling the carpet cleaner back to our truck when he comes back. "They're gone," he says. "What's gone?" "The matchbooks. Both of them." "Oh. No kidding." "It's probably that damn carpet cleaner," says Fern. "I think probably dimmed all the lights in the neighborhood. Someone called the cops." "Did you tell them we matched out?" says Alex. "I told them you flopped 2 books, but it needed to be done." He's wiping down his hairy arms with a shop towel. "Could have been worse, man. And this was a 2-tier job, so it's not a loss or anything. 15 grand at least." His phone rings yet again. He frowns and answers it. "Yeah, Claire." "Yeah?" Fern is smiling now. "Sure, that's a great idea." "Why didn't I think of that?" "Yeah, ma'am, I'll tell him." "Okay, bye." He hangs up. "Okay, Alex, they're bringing you in. But first, you gotta pick something up." Besides coffee?" "Yeah, besides coffee." Fern punches Chapman's address into Alex's GPS and tells him where he left the matchbooks so he can grab them on the way out. With that, Alex is off to Maple Street in Turnersville. It's going to be a while before poor Alex is back on the road again, and by that time, he should have very different sensibilities. As we pull away from the house, though, something occurs to me. "Fern?" "Yeah, bro." "How the hell is Alex going to get Chapman out of the house and into a barrel by himself?" Fernando pauses, then wheezes laughter. "He's a professional, man. He'll figure it out." "Well, if he throws out his back, at least he'll have a couple of months to rest it." "At least a couple." "That's funny, bro." I picture the mammoth man lying next to his good Chianti stain. Let's hope he puts those bookends back. Part 3. A day in the life of a Pale Horse of the Apocalypse Inc. technician, or as my coworkers like to call it, another day in paradise, begins at 9 a.m. Each team, usually a veteran and an apprentice, is given an agenda, which may include a combination of killing, stakeouts, and/or assists, in what dispatch estimates should amount to a suitable workday. As you might have guessed, they're hardly ever on the money. One day you might get back to home base with 3 full barrels by early afternoon, and the next, you might roll in at 9 p.m. with nothing but assists to show for it. If a particular workday is important to you, a PHA technician is not your type of job. Regular recertifications are required, so it isn't unusual to be relegated to training rather than sent out on the road. You can expect to be sent to training 3 or 4 times a month, or for extended periods if you screwed something up, like Alex had. In this way, training doubles as a form of discipline. Some of these training recertifications include methodology, biohazard and disposal, form and formalities, tools and applications, and practical safety. Methodology, if you haven't figured it out by now, is the set of principles by which we work. Each technician is expected to memorize all 43 of them, their explanations included, and we're routinely quizzed at random. Most of us can rattle them off without a problem, but mastering the principle on a practical level requires years of repetition, putting them into practice and repeating them until they become second nature. Fernando is a good example of a technician whose instincts have been modeled around proper methodology. Whether he can recite them or not has no bearing on his work at this point. He just knows them. Biohazard and disposal certifications include blood and body fluid safety and canning. The cans, corn-based 60-gallon drums, are used for carrying back, transporting, and disposing of corpses. These drums are handled under strict guidelines during transportation, both back to the hub and out to the incineration station. I've never been to the incineration station. Fernando has. He says the corn-based barrels and flesh burning smells like a cookout. Form and formalities is a brief certification but changes the most often. Those matchbooks are the basis of our formal dealings with the law. They aren't discussed between police and agencies, only quietly redeemed for cash, $5,000 apiece, and $10,000 for the black ones. The potential for these payoffs is factored into the cost of the job and paid for by the customer. Think of it as insurance. The incentive to keep the system quiet, unabused, and effective is self-evident. Practical safety is another pretty easy one. Bites, cuts, sprains and strains, etc. Safety precautions and equipment. Most of the veteran guys have bite scars. A man in his death throes can bite like a pit bull. Fernando and I were in the last practical class together, and the trainer had borrowed him as a kind of visual aid. I knew he'd been bitten a couple times, but it turned out he had bite scars all over him, at least 10 still visible. One on his forearm was from choking a chinless man. This was so long ago he hadn't even started popping yet. He had a few on each leg from pinning attempts and one on his shoulder from a sloppy maneuver he couldn't quite explain. This in itself was telling. If you can't explain what happened, your technique was likely improper. The point of this display? Methodology principle number 1. Technique, technique, technique. Interestingly, with all these methods and principles, you'd think we'd have specific tools training, but no, we don't. Tools and techniques attain legitimacy through repeated successes, tried and true methods, like Fernando's screw-a-driver or Olivetti's choke, are both good examples. Every technician has his own strengths and weaknesses, and will adapt these successful tools and techniques into what works best for him. Bad, loud, or excessively destructive weapons are prohibited, but if creative freedom is allowed anywhere at PHA, it is in this area. We walk into Fortissimo restaurant at 3:15, more or less on schedule. Fernando has on his plain red cap, the one with the camera embedded in the brim. He's in a fine mood now. Looks like he's going to be on time for Love Night after all. This is a stakeout. Most of the time, at least 2 stakeouts are performed prior to a Zone 3 job, like commercial. This is also a Tier 2 job, subject to be left unseen. Jobs like these are prepared for carefully. By the time the technician comes in for lunch, he'll have all the information he needs without ever having shown his face here prior. The target is the proprietor, John Frizzelli. The job has Mafia written all over it. Organized crime-related hits are out of alignment with our code of ethics, but the money for a Zone 3 Tier 2 job is too much for our sales team not to feign ignorance. Tier 2 Zone 3 is almost always stink of organized crime. When somebody wants a body to be left in public, it is more often than not to make a point. The unspoken truth is, where highly professional jobs need to be carried out, PHA is the industry standard. Carrying out your own mob-related hits in this day and age is akin to filing your own tax returns. When there's a lot at stake, the obvious choice for anyone with money is PHA. So, ethical or not, we end up with our share of mob jobs. "What'd you say as this one?" Fernando says. "Olivetti." "Oh, big Oliver. I bet he grabbed some lunch first." "Well, we'll report on the food, too." The host leads us to a booth, and I sit facing the door. Fern orders an antipasto appetizer. He shifts uncomfortably in his seat and reaches down and pulls out his screwdriver and lays it on the table next to his silverware. "Why'd you bring that?" I say. He shrugs. "Principle 2, bro." Methodology Principle 2. Preparedness. Always be prepared. Fair enough. But could you put it somewhere else? It's clean, man. I know, it just doesn't belong on the table next to the silverware. God, what's wrong with you? Seriously. All right, I'll put it in my sock. He leans to the side and tucks the screwdriver in his black dress sock. Your table manners have a lot to be desired, Fern. Frankly, you've got no business in a nice place like this. He chuckles. I'm just a country boy. Give me a break. A Costa Rican country boy? I say. Yeah, bro. There's two kinds of us down there, man. The country ones and the city ones. I'm from out in the country. We didn't even have electricity growing up, man. Is that right? Yeah, bro, just candles. No TV? Do you know a TV that runs on candles, man? I grin. So, what did you do for entertainment? He has to think about this for a minute. Then his face shows the recollection of a fond memory. Do you know what I did? You tie tin cans together, then you tie them to a horse's tail, and then you slap the horse in the ass and it runs like crazy. They're scared shitless while the cans clank around. Funny shit, man. I mean, that's mostly what we did. I let this sink in for a minute. That's what you did for fun. Yeah, man. We always had tin cans. That's what we used to hold the candles up, man. A few minutes later, I'm sketching a rough layout of the dining room in my notebook, and Fernando is looking around with his hat on, taking video footage. The waiter comes by with our appetizer and drinks, and we tell him, to his visible dismay, that that's all we'll be having today. We've got work to do. The front door opens and a gigantic, well-dressed figure enters. Gigantic, well-dressed, and visibly annoyed. The host approaches him while I watch. It isn't long before I realize whom I'm looking at. That's the guy. There. Fernando tilts a shiny butter knife on end and looks in the reflection behind him. If it were anyone but Fernando, I'd have told him, don't look now, but Fern is a pro. You sure, man? I nod. I'd studied the pictures in the work order. There's no mistaking the profile alone. The back of his neck bulges with obscene bunches of fat. He makes Chapman look like a fitness model, a walrus of a man. He's a big boy, Fernando says, still gazing into the side of the knife. Frizzelli is chastising the host somehow. I put in my earbud to listen along, a Bluetooth device attached to my recorder. I'm curious to hear what the hubbub is about. Fernando watches along in the reflection. Can't you do anything by yourself? How am I supposed to trust you to keep this place running if you can't handle a fucking toilet? I'm sorry, I tried the plunger. If it was a plunger thing, we wouldn't be having this conversation, believe me. Ain't there anyone you can call for shit like this? Well, yeah, but I thought you might want to look at it before some gavone comes in here and charges us who knows how much. What are you, a fucking idiot? No, sir, I just... What do I say about taking initiative? You said to take initiative. What did I say about it? Am I speaking fucking Chinese here? No, sir. That is the core of fucking management. If you can't take fucking initiative, how are you supposed to fucking manage? I understand, sir. I will from now on, I promise. Lesson learned. He's fucking perturbed, I say. I can tell, man. I nod. Said there's a problem with the bathroom or something? I hand Fern the Bluetooth earbud. He listens amusedly and watches the exchange continue. After a while, He sets the knife down. There's gonna be a problem, man. Olivetti's a joker. Fernando has that look on his face, the gears grinding. I nod in understanding. He doesn't mean Olivetti is the type to fold under pressure. He's referring to the way Olivetti kills his marks. Choking is one of the few bloodless kills on the menu, making him a popular choice for Zone 3 jobs where post-jobbing needs to be done in a hurry. These jobs are usually performed in quiet, private areas. Bathrooms are a good choice. Mercifully, Frizzelli would be left on scene. Moving a body that big is a lofty endeavor. All his kills are chokes, I say. Hates blood. Fern bends an eyebrow at me. Can you picture choking that guy, man? I look at Frizzelli. I try picturing my legs around his midsection, a forearm clamped under his chin. Even in my imagination, I can't do it. As if Frizzelli somehow senses my thoughts, he glances over. Quickly, I look down. You're right, I say. You can't choke out that guy. That's one big fucker right there, man. They say Olive could strangle a bull. Fernando chuckles. He could, bro. I seen him. The guy's good. But a bull has a neck. We watch in the bar mirror as Frizzelli walks to the back. The waiter comes by to check if we haven't changed our minds about ordering entrees. Fern tells him we're fine. He leaves and Fern pulls out his phone. I'm calling Olive, man. Here? Just keep an eye out, man. I hear Olivetti's phone ringing through the receiver. I pop a bruschetta in my mouth. Olive, it's Fernando. He speaks quietly, checking constantly for anyone within earshot. No one around. No patrons. No waiter. Like 400 pounds, bro. No shit. You can't do the guy, man, seriously. It's not a good idea. He's got no neck or anything. Yeah, and if you end up under him, yeah, well, or if you want. I know, bro, split it with you. Either way, bro. Okay. This goes on for a minute before they have an agreement. Fernando hangs up. I'm gonna do him, Fern says. We're splitting the check. All right. When's it scheduled? Fernando bends an eyebrow at me. Hold on, I say. You mean now? Methodology Principle 26, bro. Methodology Principle number 26. Don't hesitate. Trust your instincts. Olive can't do this guy, bro. He needs to be popped. He takes the screwdriver and slides it back under his belt. And there goes my heart. So much for an easy stakeout. You're crazy, Fern. Jesus. Frizzelli's ass is sticking out of the stall when we enter the men's room. Shit is out of order, Frizzelli says, hearing our footsteps. Piss is fine. Fernando waddles ahead of me and motions for me to stand at the urinal. I face the wall and pretend to use it. Fern knocks on the partition and Frizzelli steps backwards out of the stall. You gentlemen all right? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, sir. Just wanted to ask, are you happy with your current wine distributor? Frizzelli looks tentatively relieved, then annoyed. Believe me, Chico, you couldn't compete with my distributor. You delivery guys? I have that feeling in my thighs, that sour weakness. I can hear my own heartbeat. Everything looks sharper, has a tinge of blue, and I see my reflection in the chrome of the urinal's flush lever. Behind me, the black of an enormous suit jacket. Well, we are offering a free case to any new potential clients, today only. Fernando's voice shows no sign of stress. For the life of me, I don't know how the hell he does it. And me? Why the hell am I doing this? I'm supposed to be a novelist, a professor, something. Oh yeah? Frizzelli smooths down his lapels and steps forward. What kind of vino we talking here? Fernando has his eye on Frizzelli's shirt. Worry about that stain, man. Frizzelli glances down. That's my cue. There will be no second chance to do this right. I turn from the urinal and jump on Frizzelli's calf and swing my arm around his neck just as Fern lunges in. In one smooth motion, I grab the bicep of my other arm and squeeze. All at once, I understand why Fernando had deemed this man unchokeable. He doesn't budge at all under my weight. It's like hanging onto a brick wall. If he were to get his hands on me, I'd be helpless. right on schedule. Frizzelli's head bounds backwards, and I know Fernando has struck. Thank God. But something's wrong. Fernando's shoe had squeaked on the tile floor. I'd heard it. He'd slipped. "Shit!" says Fernando. And just like that, Frizzelli bucks me off his back like an angry bull. I bounce against the partition and land on my feet, but I'm disoriented, and I nearly slip myself. Frizzelli stumbles and lands with his back in the urinal, snapping wall tiles like crackers. Somewhere, the screwdriver clanks to the floor. Fernando is scrambling to hone in on it. Suddenly, I meet eyes with Frizzelli, an attitude of murder where there'd normally be astonishment. Not astonished at all. In a glance, I know he'd been half expecting this. Above his eyebrow, an obscene tear in the flesh of his forehead. Fern had missed his mark. It happens in a literal heartbeat. The skin splits wide, shrinking back over the bone. For a moment, you're not sure if it's going to bleed at all. Then, all at once, ribbons of blood. Before you know it, it seems like gallons of it are everywhere. The eyebrows, for reasons unknown, are direct portals to the circulatory system. All this had taken place in under 2 seconds, but the irony of Fernando slipping in his thin-soled sneakers had occurred to us both immediately, and things are about to get even more slippery. "You dead fuck!" says Frizzelli, reaching into his jacket. I bolt for the stall, my body electric with adrenaline, bracing for the gunshot I knew was coming. But here comes Fern. He butterfly smacks Frizzelli's wrist, sending the gun skittering across the floor. It careens off the wall and under the partition, knocking the lost screwdriver into view. I pick it up. There's a bit of flesh still dangling from the blade. "You filthy prick!" Frizzelli swings a fist. Fern parries, nearly slips again. Blood is pouring in buckets, and his sneakers are slick with it. But here I come, sneaking up behind Frizzelli in my non-slip boots. My instincts taking over. Fern's drills play in my mind, his work on the dummies back at the hub. You don't have to hit hard, man. Just connect. Let the screwdriver do the work. Thinking too much is what always fucks me up. Stabbing someone in the brain through the eye isn't unlike connecting with a golf ball or throwing a dart. You don't want to think about it too much. Just focus on the target and make contact. Heels planted, I bring the screwdriver around Frizzelli's giant head and plug it in. The blade connects with the rear of the socket. One light out. He spins to face me. Fern wastes no time. He's on his back like a monkey. Frizzelli reaches up and grabs hold of Fernando's left ear. Fern yelps but doesn't let go. He grabs a handful of Frizzelli's jacket and steps on the back of his leg. An audible snap, and Frizzelli is forced to take a knee. Fern stretches the fabric across his mouth and nose. "Goddamn! Kick the balls, bro! Kick the balls!" I wind up and drive my boot into Frizzelli's crotch. And again. Muffled moans from under the fabric. He lets go of Fernando's ear. Fernando arches his back and forces him backwards. They crash down, tile cracking. Fern is sitting behind him, choking him with his own collar, knees against his shoulders for leverage. Frizzelli's face is turning purple. Just like that, I've taken the lead. I straddle Frizzelli and pound the heel of the screwdriver until it sinks to the hilt. Then I stir, chipping away the thin bone of the eye socket. He vibrates, his circuits firing random impulses. Soon the resistance eases, a sensation like a fork in a bowl of Jell-O. I keep stirring. My forearm burns with the acid of exertion. I realize I'm grinding my teeth. Eventually, he is still. Fernando lets go of the jacket and gets to his feet. He rubs his ear. "Good job, man. God damn." I'm too wound up to answer. I feel a little like my own brains have been stirred. "This one's a 30-70, man." "Thanks. You alright?" "Yeah, bro." He pulls his screwdriver out and kicks Frizzelli's head sideways. Clots of brain dribble out onto the floor, a grimace frozen on Frizzelli's mouth. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That wasn't always a cliché, mind you. It used to be Confucius. I survey my condition, as we've been trained to do after a disagreeable job. We both managed to stay surprisingly clean, considering the mess. Fern's hairy forearms are smeared from the struggle, but he has on short sleeves and can wash them off in the sink. I have blood on my hands and the seat of my pants, but that's no big deal either. Considering the cataclysmic condition of the bathroom, we managed to walk back into the dining room looking relatively professional. They're going to have to find someone else to fix the toilet. Methodology principle number 32, proper form and formalities. 15 minutes later, Fernando and I are sitting at the table, eating the rest of the bruschetta. Fern sips his mint tea, reading a folded section of the paper he grabbed on the way out of the bathroom. He texted Olivetti. All done. Tell you about it later. Waiting for the cops. A smile comes across his face, exposing the silver lining of his veneers. Fucking Hagar, bro. I used to love this one. Here, check it out. He turns the paper around so I can read it. Helga, Hagar's wife, is waiting at home for him to return from work. For the wife of a Viking, a violent, thieving killer, Helga is pretty easygoing, turning a blind eye to her husband's wicked ways and waiting patiently for him to return, so that they and their daughter can enjoy some semblance of family life. Hagar comes home drunk again, having spent a night at the pub, undoubtedly attempting to sterilize his soiled conscience with alcohol. Perhaps he is unable to face his family, hoping they'll be asleep by the time he got back, but Helga is fed up with Hagar's nonsense. She'd had it up to here. Helga says something to Hagar, and he says something back. I never get the chance to read the real dialogue. The speech bubbles seem empty to me. Maybe Hagar needs to shape up or ship out. She's sick of his reprobate behavior. But reprobate behavior was Hagar's job. He was only trying to forget it. Maybe drinking the way he did was the only way to adhere to Principle 44. To leave work. At work. Fern's expecting a chuckle, but I'm lost in my imagination at the moment, because it occurs to me suddenly how similar. All at once, red and blue lights wash over the bar. The police. Fernando watches through the mirrors and pops an antipasto in his mouth and sits back and wipes his hands on the cloth napkin. Just look down, May. Just listen. I nod and flip to another page of the paper. 2 policemen enter and the manager hurries over and gestures exasperatedly, motioning to the bathroom. The cops look about, and I look down at the paper. Fernando lifts his arm and rubs the top of his bald head. The high is 90 degrees today, I read. 84 tomorrow. I don't look up. I don't need to. I can feel the cops looking at us. More lights and the door opens, but I keep my eyes on the paper. The employees are whispering hurriedly, the sound of sturdy boots moving to the back of the restaurant. The manager nervously scurries here and there. Slower steps now. 2 sets of heavy boots approaching the table. Fernando and I couldn't appear more ignorant, just enjoying a leisurely afternoon. Afternoon, folks, one cop says, a young rookie, his voice a fabricated baritone. The other officer seems more comfortable, an older fellow with a gray mustache. Comfortable, until a vague look of recognition shows in his eyes. Afternoon, officer, says Fernando, with too many syllables. He peeks outside, pretending to notice the lights for the first time. Did I park illegally, sir? No, sir. There's been an incident. We're going to need to bring you down to the station for some questioning. Questioning? Feel free to join us here. Fernando pushes out a chair and motions for them to sit down. The young cop shakes his head and opens his mouth to speak. Fernando interrupts him. Are we in any kind of danger? Not now, sir. No danger at all, but I'm afraid I must insist you. The older cop steps in, his hand on the young man's back. Gentlemen, have you noticed anything out of the ordinary here this afternoon? Fernando looks at me. I shrug, and he looks back at the officer. No, nothing unusual. Besides this unusually delicious antipasto appetizer. He offers some to the cops. The young one holds up his palms. The older one allows a smile. Any evidence, perhaps? Anything we ought to have a look at? The younger cop looks quizzically at his partner, as if he were witnessing some police procedure he missed at the academy. Now that you mention it, says Fernando. You know what? I found these on the table. He takes 2 PHA matchbooks out of his breast pocket and puts them on the table. The cop widens his eyes at them, then picks them up and puts them in his pocket. Thank you. I'll submit these for evidence. Glad to help. You two ought to hurry along, the officer says, to make way for the detectives. I would hate to get in the way. Come on, man. Let's have you go out the side door there, eh? Don't worry about the check. More cherries light up the mirror behind the bar. It's about to get pretty busy in here. No problemo. Let's go, bro. Part 4. We're over the county line by 4:30, on pace to punch out before 5:30. Not only had we gotten all our work done, but someone else's botched job as well. Fernando was happy because he'd have no trouble getting home on time for love night. And I'm a bit enamored with myself for my first successful pop job. On a true bad guy, no less. I almost hate to admit it, but I'm proud of myself. I wasn't supposed to be a technician, you know. I was supposed to be a novelist. Maybe a professor. Something like that. Fernando's phone rings a little way down the highway. He looks at the number and frowns, which means it must be the office. Yeah? What? Oh, hell no. You know Wednesdays are bad, bro. Oh yeah? How are you going to make it worth my while? He sits listening quietly for a minute. My mind is still back at Fortissimo. You know, the more I think about it, the most distasteful part of the job wasn't what you'd think. It wasn't the violence. It wasn't the blood. I'd seen bathtubs full of blood today. It was the fresh-faced brand new cop, set out to uproot and destroy evil, having his world turned upside down. Everything he thought was sacred, tossed to the dogs. The realization that right and wrong don't matter nearly as much as he thought they did. I'm sure he's sitting quietly in the passenger seat of his cruiser right now, thinking back to Ethics 101, struggling to pair what just took place with the philosophies of Immanuel Kant, of Aristotle, of Friedrich Nietzsche. Everyone has to lose their innocence eventually, I suppose. Observe, officer. There are no oysters. There are no pearls. But what red-blooded American man, ethical or not, millennial or not, can't find a pearl in a pile of 5,000 clams? Distasteful. Yes, no argument there. But by my age, most people would wipe their ass with an entire Ethics 101 textbook before they soiled a single dollar. Dude, aren't you serious? Fernando is still on the phone with the office. What is it? I ask. He doesn't answer me. Bro, you gotta be kidding me. What is it? I ask again. He glances at me a moment, but he's still listening. Yeah, I know Principle 31, bro, but Principle 31 is an important one. One of the few principles you could be fired for not following. Methodology, principle number 31. Work as directed. Not following this principle is insubordination. Obviously, they're pinning another job on us. Fern looks pissed, but the fight is going out of him. I take out my own phone and sit there looking at it. There'll be no love night at my house either way, but we normally get out pretty early on Wednesdays, and I watch the kids while Ashley goes out doing who knows what. I ought to call her and let her know I may be home a little later than usual. I should, but I don't. I just don't care. A half day, every Wednesday for a month, that's what I want, says Fernando. For doing one more job today? I ask, but Fernando gestures at me to be quiet. I look down at my phone. It occurs to me that a month's worth of early Wednesdays means a month's worth of Wednesdays that I'll be home early. Home with the girls, playing tea time and princesses and dress up. And Ashley will be there, silent and sullen, the underlying truth always resonating in the walls. It's not hate, it's worse. More like nothing than hate. Like a vacuum. You can't talk in a vacuum. You can't hear in a vacuum. You can't breathe in a vacuum. There was a time in my life I would have been excited for a half day in the middle of the work week. Hump day, right fellas? But now, I don't want to go home. The truth, and I know how it sounds, is that part of me never wants to go home again. Fernando swings onto exit 12, jarring me from my thoughts. Sorry, I was daydreaming, I say. It's all right, man. What's wrong? You sound a little forlorn all of a sudden. He doesn't answer. I decide not to pry. So, what are we doing? I ask. Last-minute job. Fast one? Yeah, it'll be quick. I promise. No hurry for me. There's no love night in my house, Fern. No love lost in my house. Yeah, I know, man. We're quiet for a while, headed west on the service road. Quiet road. Why you never tried love night, man? I've been telling you about it forever. I snorted that. Forever? I've only known you for 8 months, and Ashley and I were past the point of no return by then. That's a shame, man. It's the life of Hagar, you know. Is that another one of your quotes? Nah. The comic, like the one you showed me at Fortissimo. Like Hagar. How's that, man? Well, you know, the guy's out plundering and pillaging, doing ugly stuff all day, and you just can't manage Principle 44. Principle 44? Yeah, remember? That's kind of my own principle. Oh, right. Don't bring the work home with you. I try not to. The late day air is cooler now, providing some relief. Still, the day's sweat just dries on you, leaving you sticky. The trees are thick along the service road. I smack a mosquito that lands on my arm. I think I'm pretty good at it, I say, but I don't think it matters much. These days, I just try not to bring home to work. Fernando regards me with either condescension or sympathy. I can't tell which. And, like Principle 44, I don't suppose it makes a difference. What Hagar still cares, man. I don't know how hard he tries, but he still cares. Oh, I don't know. You think so? Yeah, bro. I wouldn't laugh if he didn't. There's nothing funny about that. We were quiet for a while he drove. I took out my phone again and looked at it, and scrolled to Ashley's icon. The picture is the same one I've had since the beginning. I remember taking it. The two of us at the Olive Garden. That was an extravagant dinner for us back then. We had no money. No money. But we had something else. What was so different now, anyway? What had been so different for such a long time? Why did we let it happen? I've told myself time and time again that it just happens. But does it really? Or is it a cop-out? It hadn't happened to Fernando and his wife. Is it possible for Ashley and me to get to a point again where we could have our own love night? I mean, we'd never call it that. That's too corny, but maybe date night? We can afford a babysitter now. We can even afford a truly extravagant dinner. We could, but maybe I'd just start by taking her back to the Olive Garden. Maybe that's what we could do. Try starting over again. My thumb hovers over Ashley's icon. It hovers there, then withdraws. I shut off the screen and put the phone down on my thigh and hold it there a minute. Then, I put it back in my pocket. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll try caring. That's always the best time to turn over a new leaf, isn't it? Tomorrow. You think it's even fixable? I ask Fern. He sighs. You just run out of options the longer you'll go, man. Eventually, I guess. Maybe you'll just run out of options altogether. Yeah, I say. We pull over in an old wooded lot. The sun is behind the tree line now, and it's a relief. It's been a long, hot, blood-soaked Wednesday. You gotta take a leak or anything? Fern says. Nah, I'm fine, I say. Are we close? Yeah. Fernando stretches his arms overhead. They gave me a month's worth of Wednesdays off. Off? No kidding. I reconsider my idea. Wednesdays off. Maybe I could make a project out of it. Family day? I could talk a lot, even if I don't want to. I could be thoughtful, say nice things. I wouldn't think about work. I'd tell Ashley she looked nice, even if I didn't think so. And the kids. I do stuff with the kids, but mostly I try to focus on Ashley. I try to see her the way I used to. I try. I'm off Wednesdays too, then?
I asked hopefully. Yeah, you too, man. Are they paying you? 1 kill's worth a day. Oh, that's great, man. Yeah. Quiet on the road, only the faint white noise of the highway in the distance. The sweat is drying under my scratchy polyester clothes, and the residual blood on the seat of my pants feels tacky on the canvas jump seat. The worn diamond plate floor of the old truck, blue stuff rocking back and forth in the opaque plastic windshield washer tank, old bolts rolling down the road one by one. Each day, the things we take for granted slowly disintegrate. All guys like us really have is our families to come home to. The smell of dinner when we open the door. The adoring kids. So happy to see Daddy come home again. That's why we do this in the first place. Isn't it? The realization hits me like a shock. Just like that, I understand. The folly of my ways has never been so completely obvious. Clear as day. It's me. I'm the asshole. This whole time, I've been the problem. I have to fix my marriage before it's too late. God. By now, she probably wants me dead. Fernando, I've been thinking. He's turned to face me now, his feet planted flat on the floor, his hands in his lap. Bro, he said. What? That is some stain on your shirt.
Chilling tales for dark nights.